into custody along with a handgun. This is all still unfolding, but this is the briefing that police have just given us. The superintendent of Oxford Schools spoke also a few minutes ago, and he just looked stunned, absolutely stunned, said that they prepare for this kind of thing. The students undergo training, and they did what they were told, but sadly, some of those students lost their lives in this school shooting. Again, we don't know the condition of the other 6 that were injured, one of them being a teacher. We're expected to get a briefing later today at around 5 o'clock with some new information, ages of the students that were injured. Todd, I'm going to scoot just a little here. Just sorry, this is all kind of evolving a little bit loud over with all the media, but I just want to get a little more into the arrest that was made of this student, a 15-year-old student, a male student at the high school, opened fire. He had several magazines on him with that weapon, 15 to 20 shots fired just around 2 o'clock today, hitting multiple students. Within 5 minutes, one of the deputies that is actually assigned to Oxford High School was able to help apprehend and arrest that subject. The whole situation lasted about 5 minutes. During that time, police by the dozens, hundreds came into the school to triage those that were injured and take them to various area hospitals where 6 of them are still being treated. Now, we understand that there was no indicator at this point that this was premeditated, but again, still preliminary information. We don't know if there was a note or a social media post or something like that that indicated that this was going to happen. Now, we did ask about metal detectors at the school. There are none. It sounded like, at least from what the superintendent said, it's never come up in conversation because they've not had any issues. So it's unclear how this student was able to bring the gun to school, how he brought it to school, but what did happen is he did open fire, again, 15 to 20 shots. Now, after he was arrested, he invoked his right to stay silent, so police at this point have not been able to siphon out any kind of information about what was going on. We also asked what the shooter was wearing. He was wearing normal clothes. There was no indicator of body armor. Now, again, we're expected to learn more from police and first responders, again, by the hundreds still at the school. Good news, the school is cleared out at this point. They are still searching to make sure there isn't anybody hiding out or forgotten in the school. But again, the 6 injured have been transported and are being treated at area hospitals. And sadly, 3 students lost their lives on this very sad day here in Oxford Township.
A day that will not likely be forgotten anytime soon, and certainly right now the big focus is on the 3 losses of life here, 3 students dead, 6 other people shot, including 1 staff member, Taryn, inside of Oxford High School, a 15-year-old student in custody right now.
And we heard that there were more than 100 911 calls made at the time. We understand that our Charlie Langton is actually speaking to a student who was inside at the time and witnessed the shooting. Charlie, you have that person with you right now.
Up over here, Isabelle Flores, 15 years old, freshman. Tell us where you were when you heard these shots.
Okay, I was in the back during oral history where the classes were at, and I was walking to my class, and little do you know, I hear gunshots, and I seen the guy bleeding through his cheek, and we all ran through like the back where the pool's at, and then we went through the gym, and then we went in the back, and the guy was still bleeding, and then we just all went from the back to all the houses in the back, and the ambulance started coming, make sure everybody was okay, make sure the guy was okay, but he was bleeding, ripped, and that's all I seen.
So this is after lunch this happened, and this was between the classes, between lunch and then the changing of the next class, is that right?
Yes.
And in the area of the school, it was in the history class, that area. Describe the area where those shots were.
In the hallway, there was 2 doors, and there was another door right here, a window, and you keep walking, there was like lockers right there, and then when you turn, it was like right there. All I hear was 5 gunshots nonstop, kept going, and then after that, I was out the building.
And then you saw one of the people hit just describe the person. You didn't know this student though, did you?
I did not know the student, but he was wearing green, kind of like a brunette color. He had like long hair, kind of like to his ears. He khaki pants, and like shoes were like black and they were like Nike, and he was just bleeding. That's all I seen.
Where was he bleeding from?
He was bleeding from the face, the chin right here, and through his arm, dripping blood.
What did you think when you saw this?
Repeat that again?
No, it's just you must have been upset when you saw this. Then
Yes, I froze.
was someone helping him coming to his rescue?
No, he was walking by himself at first, and then everybody looked at him, and they seen he was bleeding, so they helped him. You know, when we got out, they helped him, and then he walked by himself, and he went in the car.
All right, you were trying to get out of the school. Is that
Yes.
Spartan time? Can you describe the running? People were running, is that right?
Yes, people were running. The teacher stopped us at first because she didn't know what was going on, but the teacher got pushed, and then we just ran out.
Where did you go after you got out of the school?
I went from the back where where they play football, where the football is area, and I went down there, and then I went by these houses where the subdivision was at houses.
All right, Isabelle, thank you. Let me bring in a couple of other people here. First of all, Raquel, and your friends are over here, Ricardo and George. But Raquel, you heard the shots as well. And what did you do when you heard all the shots?
I stopped and froze for a bit because I didn't know what that was. But then I heard a second shot go off, and I just ran out the door. Just ran with my friends.
And describe what you guys were doing too.
We were walking with our other friend Damien, and the first shot went off, and we kind of just stood there thinking what it was. Then the second one went off, we kind of did the same thing, and the third one went off, and that's when like everyone started running, and so did we.
But I'm not going to
We
worry about
ran
it.
like the opposite direction from the bullets.
Did you know what was going on? And did anybody see the shooter?
No, I did not.
And Charlie's
You know the
getting
student, and you did not see anyone that was hit, is that right?
No.
So what was going on? Was this chaos? Or did you know what was going on, or you just wanted to get out?
Just wanted to get out.
Pure chaos. Right when everyone was getting out, people were getting into their cars. It was just, everyone was just afraid to get hit.
Everybody was falling.
Yeah.
I fell.
You fell? You fell trying to get out?
Yeah, it was like, because it was like really slippery outside.
It was like a stampede or something to get out?
Not really, because like I was like one of the first ones out. So it was like not that many people, but then like later on there was.
And I understand that you guys went to the Meijer. Is that where you were? Why the Meijer? Is that close by?
We were just told to. We were just told to go there.
And then what happened? How'd you leave the school? Because you guys, this is Pontiac. It's about a 20-minute drive from where we're at right now to the school or so. So how did you get from the Meijer parking lot back to your house here?
Right when I ran out those doors, I called my mom, panicking to pick me up, to get like a little head start for her to get here.
Looking back on what happened, what's going through your mind right now?
The only thing I was thinking about was like the people around me and if they were okay. And then like at one point I was like almost like falling behind in the crowd that was like pushing up so they could get out. And then my friend he helped me, he like put himself behind me, so like he made sure that nothing happened to me.
When everyone started running, I thought about my sister, Isabelle.
Come here, Isabelle. Get in here. You guys are right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought about her, and like I called her and stuff, and trying to figure out where she was. And I ended up I was in the front of the school, and main office. She was in the back of the school, so I didn't know what to do. And she told me that she was safe, so I had to continue to go to Meijer's, and my mom picked her up from the subdivisions or something.
All right, last question to you. I mean, what's going through your mind right now after you saw someone actually get hit with a bullet?
I don't even know, to be honest. My mind was everywhere. I was so shocked this happened. I seen it, and it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's just a lot going on right now, and I feel send prayers to the people who did get hurt and stuff, because it's pretty sad.
You'll be able to go back to school. 3 of your fellow students killed that we're understanding now.
No, I won't be able to. It's a lot.
All right. Listen, thank you so much for what you went through, and take some time to just let this settle in, okay? I appreciate it, all right? Again, we're here in Pontiac. We're about 20 minutes or so away from the Oxford High School. You just heard from 4 students, one of them who actually saw the victim bleeding, as she described, from the cheek, blood down his arm, and then the students just tried to get out of the school. That's what they were just trying to do. They made it home. They are safe. Obviously now learning the details. 3 of their fellow students killed in this terrible incident at Oxford High School. I just want to thank you so much. I'll send it back to you, in the studio. We're live.
Charlie, the courage that these young people have, still in a state of shock, to talk about what happened just 2.5 hours ago is amazing. You just got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and I tell you what, they listen.
You guys
we're
need
just saying
me,
how
whatever.
how brave you are for just telling this story. But it's just so sad. We wish you the best. Okay, all right. Why don't you go ahead and get some sleep or so? Okay, if you can. All right. Really, it's an amazing a group of kids. I mean, what they've witnessed and what they had to go through. Obviously, they're going to be thinking about it for a while. But they're all on their phones right now. They're trying to talk to their fellow students to find out even more details. But as you said, they got out. These 4 were safe. Again, it could have been a lot worse. I'll send it back to you guys.
Charlie Langton for us live, talking to students over there. Taryn, we just obtained video a few minutes ago, a video from inside the school of when they hear a voice of apparently the shooter claiming he's a sheriff and telling everybody to get out, at which point everybody inside of that classroom then goes and hides under a desk. Some very chilling and just terrible situation happening inside of Oxford High School.
Right.
3 people dead, 6 people hurt.
And you just have to imagine the chaos that those kids were in the middle of and the confusion. You heard one student that Charlie spoke to. He didn't know what was going on at first, but once he did, he wanted to get out of there quickly. Ardina Sanafani, who was on the scene a little bit earlier, spoke to a student who was right there witnessing the chaos and the shooting. And take a listen right now.
My boyfriend texted me about someone in the school or gun, told me to hide, and at first I didn't think much of it, because I just didn't think it would actually happen. But then apparently it wasn't a drill, so we all hid, and it was really scary.
Oh my gosh! When you hid, where did you hide?
Well, we locked the doors, but there's this closet actually in the classroom, so it was very safe, and the classroom was in the back corner.
Did you hear any gunshots?
Yeah.
You're hearing from students right there, and a student who didn't see it directly but heard from somebody. I'm sure many kids received text messages from their fellow students and other friends telling them what to do because it was happening so rapidly. We do want to talk a little bit. We know about the suspect, a 15-year-old sophomore. That's what we know at this point. He was using a semi-automatic handgun, multiple rounds fired. But luckily, the deputy who was assigned to the school was able to help detain him along with other authorities within 5 minutes. That's according to Under Sheriff McCabe. He said that happened pretty quickly, that this 15-year-old did surrender, but now he has invoked his rights and has asked for an attorney and is not saying anything at this point.
12:51 p.m. Taryn, is when life changed for so many hundreds and hundreds of students and families in northern Oakland County there at Oxford High School when the shooting took place. That's when the calls first came in to the sheriff's deputies saying that there was an active shooter inside the school. In the moments following that, of course, as you can imagine, it was chaos. Taryn, you saw Dina talking to that student over there. That was the area right across the street on Lapeer Road for about an hour's time, was the staging area for moms and dads to pick up their sons and daughters. Obviously, the sad and terrible situation here is that we know at least 3 students whose parents will not be seeing their son or daughter come home, and also 5 other students, and also a teacher who is also shot in this situation. Let's take a listen once again, if you're just joining us, to what law enforcement agents are saying about what transpired inside of Oxford High School.
Around 12:51 today, we received a 911 call of an active shooter at the high school. Deputies immediately responded, and we received over 100 911 calls into our dispatch center, over 100. The deputies took a suspect into custody within 5 minutes of the original 911 call. They recovered a handgun from the suspect. The suspect fired multiple shots. There's multiple victims. It's unfortunate that I have to report that we have 3 deceased victims right now who are all believed to be students. We have 6 others that were shot. 1 was a school teacher. They're all at local hospitals being treated for various injuries. Again, multiple shots were fired. He did not give us any resistance when he was taken into custody. He's currently being transported back to Pontiac for potential, he's already invoked his right to not speak. So he wants an attorney. He's not telling us anything at this point in time.
And you were listening right there to Undersheriff Michael McCabe updating us. We heard that there's going to be another update around 5 p.m. today. He also did tell us there was a third sweep of the school to see if there was any other injured students. There were not. That was the good news of this. But let's just talk about the response. Roop, there was 60 ambulances from multiple jurisdictions who responded. They did take multiple patients or the injured students to different hospitals. We are unclear right now on those 6 people, including one teacher. We heard the undersheriff say their conditions at this point, but we know that they are being treated at this point. And I believe, did you just hear, we're going to live right now to the hospital now with an update on what may be going on there? Or live pictures, okay. So let's get back to that really quickly. Their conditions aren't known, but we do know that they are being treated and that their families have been notified about what's going on.
Yeah, if you're wondering how many people were injured and how many people were hurt, this is the scene outside of the hospital right now. They're in Pontiac, outside of McLaren. If you're familiar with that area, that would be the closest hospital. It seems as though there's Ascension, obviously, in Rochester. There's McLaren out there in Pontiac. There were 2 medevac helicopters, I know, that landed at the scene about an hour and 20 minutes ago. One with the maize and blue paint on it was clearly that from University of Michigan. This, outside of the McLaren hospital there, you do see a sheriff's deputy vehicle. That's where inside we know that at least some of the 6 people who are hurt are inside right now. Again, those 2 medevac helicopters, are those included with the 6? I'm assuming yes. 6 people hurt in all here. So a handful of students inside of McLaren right now being treated for injuries. How serious are those injuries? They didn't get into that. We didn't hear Undersheriff McCabe talk about how serious those injuries are, if they're expected to survive. Of course, our deepest thoughts and prayers are with the moms, dads, families, the grandparents, everybody has a loved one inside that hospital or anywhere else in Metro Detroit right now.
Yes.
After this terribly dark day inside of Oxford High School.
Right. Northern Oakland County, we know, is just a close-knit community with many families and people knowing each other through sports or whatnot. So many people connected to this terrible day. One thing we do also want to point out that was very interesting that the undersheriff said is that the school was able to help facilitate this by marking the doors of the high school. So the deputies and the police knew where to enter to be able to really bring this to fruition as quickly as possible. That was key. So that really kind of goes down to the emergency protocol that everybody has been trained to do. And that helped bring that 15-year-old suspect into custody within 5 minutes of the first 911 call. So that's really very amazing. Right now, though, we are going to go check back now with Jessica Dupnack. She is live. Jessica, what are you hearing?
Well, right now, just a scene setter here. We are across the street from Meyer in Oxford Township. This is where parents reunited with their kids within the last couple of hours since the shooting happened. I'm going to draw my attention to an ambulance coming down the street. Could be unrelated, but it's been pretty chaotic here as far as first responders. This is Lapeer Road, which you're looking at. This is kind of the main drag through Oxford Township, but just an immense police response. Again, that ambulance you're looking at, we're unsure if it is related to this school shooting or not. There is regular business as usual for these first responders out here also, but what we do know is the school has been cleared at this point. There are still first responders, detectives, investigators in the school, but as far as students and staff, that school has been cleared after a secondary search. Now, some new information to pass on that we talked about in the press conference got a little bit overlooked with some of the other information. Oxford High School had an incident of vandalism earlier this month on November 4th, where red paint and messages of graffiti were put all over the school, along with a severed deer's head that was thrown there as well. We did ask the superintendent if that was related. The undersheriff kind of interjected there and said that's all still under investigation. So again, it could be a total coincidence or there could be something more here. We also talked to them about any sort of premeditation. Was there a note on social media as we see play out across the country? Was there something that signified that this was going to happen? And again, the undersheriff said he could not talk about it at this point. We are expected to hear more from them at 5 o'clock, where we'll get some more information about the victims, just the tragedy that played out here earlier today. 3 students deceased, 6 in the hospital, one of those being a teacher, and hopefully in the next couple of hours we'll learn some more. We do understand that parents and family of the deceased have been notified. That tragic news that of course no one expects when they send their child off to school.
Just a terrible situation, and one that, Jessica, you've been watching since it unfolded outside there, of course, just moments after arriving at the scene. These parents out there that had to wait and find out whether or not their loved one was okay, that had to have been perhaps the longest wait they've had in their entire life.
And as we've heard, Dina spoke with some parents earlier. We spoke to some off camera and almost at a loss for words, crying, thankful that they were able to call or text their student that was still in the school just to know that they were okay. But some parents not getting those messages. But yes, obviously just a long, scary day out here. Parents just sitting in their cars waiting to be reunited with their students.
All right, Jessica Dupnack for us live. We'll be checking in with Jessica, of course, throughout the evening. I just got a voicemail from a dad who says he was inside of a barber shop there in Clarkson, Taryn, and he got a text message from his son saying that he'd have to perhaps jump out of a window because of an active shooter situation. The young man was inside of the school right nearby where he heard someone yell, "Sheriff's deputy," and it wasn't the sheriff's deputy, it was the shooter. Trying to lure people out. And this was the smart training that these students went through, where instead of getting up and saying, okay, we're fine, come out, he went right under the desk. You see the video, and we'll be turning that video around in a few minutes for people to see. But just some chilling and terrible moments inside of Oxford High School today.
I think I speak for many parents out there. It is one of your biggest fears when you send your daughter, your son off to school every single day, that this potentially could happen. So our thoughts and prayers certainly going out to the parents who are dealing with such tremendous loss right now. Although we have spoken extensively on the incredible response by authorities and emergency teams, it is sad that this individual has been able to get as far as he did. We understand that he had a couple magazines. There were multiple rounds fired off, and that, thank goodness, also when he did not try to shoot at police. We did hear that. They were able to take him into custody. Lots of questions about the why. Everybody wants to know the why. How could somebody do this? And are these children being targeted? Or was there a warning and social media? So we have a lot of questions to answer when it comes to this. Certainly, we don't want to put the shooter in a spotlight, but a lot of people are concerned about how this could have happened.
Yeah, and when it happened, we know, Taryn, was right about the time that there was a transfer between lunch and back to class, a pretty chaotic time in which you can see probably a very active and a busy period where people are going from lunch back to the classrooms, and that's when apparently this student decided to do that. If it's okay with our producers, I'll play, I believe, the voicemail we have here from the gentleman who learned about his son being inside, and hopefully...
It was an emergency. My son was actually barricaded under a desk, and I sent you a video of him under the desk. They were actually knocking on the door, trying to get into his classroom. I jetted out of there and shot up to the high school right away. He actually crawled out of a window and took off, so he's okay. But, unfortunately, there was a couple injuries there. If you have any more questions about what happened, they were impersonating being sheriff, trying to get into the door. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to.
And that parent then proceeded to give us his phone number. This is the video that parent, Taryn, is referring to. He sent it to Fox 2. This is his son who's taking this video. And as you'll see over here, they know something has happened. They know there's a shooter situation. They hear on the outside of the door someone say, "Sheriff's deputy." They knew that wouldn't be the call that they should be responding to. They shouldn't be getting out of the classroom. Instead, they should be doing what they practiced, which was to go under the desk. You see that student there tuck himself under the desk, despite the fact that person was trying to misguide them out of the room and into danger. Chilling.
It is frightening, and we say this, and it does look like something out of a movie, something that we have witnessed before, and it is you have to wonder what's going through those kids' minds, they're probably wondering who they should believe. They're trying to stick with what they know. And also you hear about his son who jumped out the window because that was his reaction to be able to do that. Now, I think we do have Dave Spencer right now live. We were going to try to take him. Dave, can you hear me?
I hear you, Taryn. Yes, I'm out here outside of McLaren Hospital in Pontiac right now, where we're looking at it's pretty much a static scene since we arrived here roughly 45 minutes ago. I'm seeing 3 sheriff deputy vehicles parked outside of the emergency trauma entrance. We're watching people come in and out, seemingly having nothing to do with what unfolded at the Oxford Hospital, but we have seen a number of people run with some urgency up to the entrance, then dart into the parking structure nearby. Can't get a definitive grip on if they are looking for any of the patients. We do know that if there were going to take trauma patients that were shot, this would be the logical choice. This is a larger hospital. It's located near Oxford High School, so you would one would assume, because I know that the undersheriff, when giving his press briefing earlier, did not specify which local hospitals the patients, the 6 of them outside of the 3 that were killed at Oxford High earlier today, were taken to. Again, 3 sheriff deputy SUVs, 2 of them pulled up on the sidewalk and 1 right in front. We're seeing a number of security guards outside the entrance here, along with a what appears to be a sheriff's canine unit. No other indication that anything else is happening at this hospital, other than the fact that we know that the 6 patients, or the 6 that were injured inside Oxford High, were taken to local hospitals. As soon as we learn more from either hospital staff or hospital officials, we'll be sure to bring that to you. Reporting live in Pontiac today, Dave Spencer, back to you.
Dave, quick question for you. We did see, obviously, out on the scene about an hour and a half ago, 2 medevac helicopters there. One of them had the maize and blue on it. We're assuming U of M. The other one, perhaps where you're at. A little bit about, your experience, obviously, when you're talking about medevac airlifting. That's a very, very tenuous situation.
It certainly is. And, I haven't seen, since we've been here, any helicopters coming or going. So, that would be a clear indication that patients were taken here. Other than the fact that, this is a functional hospital. So people are coming and going with emergencies all the time. So it's hard to pinpoint what exactly or how many patients were taken, if any, from Oxford High.
6 people hurt today, 3 people dead. Dave Spencer is live outside of the hospital at McLaren there in Pontiac, where, of course, as he said, he saw parents running in, perhaps because of what this situation that occurred outside of Oxford High School. As he points out, it's a hospital. People are not going there because it's a good day. Certainly, this is a terrible one that these parents have to deal with. And if indeed those were parents who are running in to get the latest on their child's condition.
We understand that there were 1,600 students who attend Oxford High School. So this is a massive school when you think about it. So when we hear that the school followed the emergency protocol, we're able to mark the doors so that authorities could respond specifically to an area, that would probably, you would assume, reduce any chances of any more students being injured. You really have to think about how massive this response had to be and how quickly it had to happen to prevent any more injuries or even deaths.
That's a good point. You talk about training, Taryn, and we've been talking about that for the last few hours here. The kind of training that took place that perhaps, as Charlie pointed out, prevented further hurt, further death inside of that school today. Nonetheless, with 3 people dead today, 6 others hurt, this shooter, in whatever goal it was that he was trying to achieve, whoever he was angry at, upset at, whether or not he was able to hit, were they suspected students that he was already looking to hit? Was this random? Those are all questions that we still wait to hear answers from. And tonight at 5, as you point out, Oakland County Sheriff's Deputy, they're talking with the superintendent, scouring social media, talking to other students, and they're gathering all that information to figure out if this was random, if this was targeted, was this a boyfriend-girlfriend situation? Was this a vendetta? What was this? All these parents, all these students, they want that answer now.
They sure do. A lot of people, I'm sure, watching do as well. We do want to say, though, that 15-year-old suspect has been brought into custody. He has invoked his rights. He is not speaking, has asked for an attorney at this point. We know that the FBI, we heard a little bit from Tim Waters, they have been brought in to assist. The superintendent also speaking very briefly, only answering a question that they do not have metal detectors at that school. We know many schools don't at this point. This may change, that may spark some change, but they did not have that. We don't know if any sort of sweeps happen. We don't know what kind of situations that they do handle to make sure that it doesn't lead to an issue like this, but he was very short when he was responding to the reporter during the press conference. There was, though, a deputy who was assigned to the school, and that deputy was the one that helped bring in the suspect within 5 minutes of the first 911 call.
And let's go back to some pictures. For those who are just joining us right now, Taryn, of course, talking about that situation where, unfolded in a matter of minutes, 5 minutes between 12:51 when they first got the call. Perhaps that was when they first reported the call. A few minutes before that is when the shots were fired inside the school. Did this student, was he already at the school? Did he bring the school in? Did he bring the gun in, having not been a part of the school day already? Was he a part of it throughout the day and then decided to open fire during this time? Those are all questions that have yet to be answered. But as we take a look at some pictures right now, this from inside the school, our first view of what it looks like inside the school from a student's point of view. The student who sent this video says he was literally next door to a classroom or the hallway in that area where the shooting took place, and he heard a voice saying sheriff's deputy, and he knew that it was time for him to get under the desk, even though he was pretty sure, as was the case, that this was not a sheriff's deputy, but the shooter's voice that was trying to conjure people out of the classrooms and into the hall.
And right now we are going to check back in with Fox 2's Brandon Hudson. Last check, he was outside, really where police have blocked off the traffic. Brandon, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, Taryn, I want you to look over to my left. You will see that this first responders presence has basically thinned out dramatically. You have really just two Oakland County Sheriff's deputies, SUVs on either end of the street right here outside of the high school. You can see a sheriff's deputy walking with another unmarked black SUV that's coming through. Most of the traffic has been moved out. The paramedics, the ambulances, they've moved out. The tow trucks have moved out. I remember when last time you came to me, there may have been like 5 or 6 or 7 ambulances. Well, those have all left, likely going to help in other areas where they're needed. But this is what's going on out here. You have sheriff's deputies who have basically told people that if you live in the subdivision across the street from the house, your best bet is to just go find somewhere to wait. I heard one sheriff's deputy tell someone that if they had an hour to kill, they might as well go find a way to do it somewhere else, or an hour to, if they have some downtime, go spend it somewhere else. Again, on the other side, we are a few hundred yards away from Oxford High School, which is on my right over here. So right by North Oxford and Tower Drive, that's the high school there. No activity that we've seen since we got here a little more than an hour and a half ago. Now, a few moments ago, I did speak to a guy who lives, he and his mom live across the street from the high school. He said that he and his mom were leaving their home just as the police were moving in as this shooting was taking place. In the immediate aftermath, he said that he heard the police driving up to the school, driving up to campus, and then at that time he saw 2 officers with their guns drawn going into the high school. He said it was a very bizarre scene, especially given that this is a very quiet area here. And he said it's a very sad situation, and he feels for a lot of the students who are involved and a lot of the teachers who are involved and just this whole community.
All right, Brandon, thank you. And you said you were at North Oxford Road and Tower Road. People really want to avoid that area. You can see that police still have it blocked off. And if you have some time to kill, just make sure you do it, instead of heading home at this point.
That's a good point. That's not an area you want to be near right now. Obviously, still, although under control, an active situation outside of Oxford High School. 3 people dead, 3 students who were killed today by an active shooter. Another fellow student, a 15-year-old, who brought in a semi-automatic handgun and opened fire during passing time between lunch and class. 6 others hurt. You know, Charlie Langton had a chance to speak with some of the students who actually were inside the school when all of this went down. I think we have that sound from Charlie. Just wait with us, bear with us here.
Isabelle Flores, 15 years old, freshman. Tell us where you were when you heard these shots.
Okay, I was in the back during oral history where the classes were at, and I was walking to my class, and I hear gunshots, and I seen the guy bleeding through his cheek, and we all ran through like the back where the pool's at, and then we went through the gym, and then we went in the back, and the guy was still bleeding, and then we just all went from the back to all the houses in the back, and the ambulance started coming, make sure everybody was okay, make sure the guy was okay, but he was bleeding, ripped, and that's all I seen.
So this is after lunch this happened, and this was between the classes, between lunch and then the changing of the next class, is that right?
Yes.
And in the area of the school, it was in the history class, that area. Describe the area where those shots were.
In the hallway, there was 2 doors, and there was another door right here, a window, and you keep walking, there was like lockers right there, and then when you turn, it was like right there. All I hear was 5 gunshots nonstop, kept going, and then after that, I was out the building.
And then you saw one of the people hit the, just describe the person. You didn't know this student though, did you?
I did not know this student, but he was wearing green, kind of like a brunette color. He had like long hair, kind of like to his ears. He khaki pants, and like shoes were like black, and they were like Nike, and he was just bleeding. That's all I seen.
Where was he bleeding from?
He was bleeding from the face, the chin right here, and through his arm, dripping blood.
What did you think when you saw this?
Repeat that again?
No, it's just you must have been upset when you saw this. Then
yes, I froze.
Was someone helping him, coming to his rescue?
No, he was walking by himself at first, and then everybody looked at him, and they seen he was bleeding, so they helped him. When we got out, they helped him, and then he walked by himself, and he went in the car.
All right, you were trying to get out of the school. Is that Spartan time? Could you describe the running? People were running, is that right?
Yes, people were running. The teacher stopped us at first because she didn't know what was going on, but the teacher got pushed, and then we just ran out.
Where did you go after you got out of the school?
I went from the back where where they play football, where the football is area, and I went down there, and then I went by these houses where the subdivision was at houses.
All right, Isabelle, thank you. Let me bring in a couple of other people here. First of all, Raquel, and your friends are over here, Ricardo and George. But Raquel, you heard the shots as well. And what did you do when you heard all the shots?
I stopped and froze for a bit because I didn't know what that was. But then I heard a second shot go off, and I just ran out the door, just ran with my friend.
And tell us, describe what you guys were doing too.
We were walking with our other friend, Damien, and the first shot went off, and we kind of just stood there thinking what it was. Then the second one went off. We kind of did the same thing. And the third one went off, and that's when, everyone started running, and so did we. We ran, the opposite direction from the bullets.
Did you know what was going on? And did anybody see the shooter?
No, I did not.
Do you know the student? And you did not see anyone that was hit, is that right?
No, no.
So what was going on? Was this chaos? Or did you know what was going on, or you just wanted to get out?
Just wanted to get out.
Yeah.
Pure chaos. Pure chaos. Right when everyone was getting out, people were getting into their cars. It was just, everyone was just afraid to get hit.
Everybody was falling.
Yeah.
I fell. I fell.
You fell?
Yeah, I fell.
You fell trying to get out?
Yeah, it was because it was really slippery outside.
It was like a stampede or something to get out?
Not really, because I was one of the first ones out. So it was not that many people, but then later on there was.
And I understand that you guys went to the Meijer. Is that where you were? Why the Meijer? Is that close by?
We were just told to. Yeah. We were just told to go there.
Yeah. And then what happened? How'd you leave the school? Because you guys, this is Pontiac. It's about a 20-minute drive from where we're at right now to the school or so. So how did you get from the Meijer parking lot back to your house here?
Right when I ran out those doors, I called my mom, panicking to pick me up, to get a little head start for her to get here.
Looking back on what happened, what's going through your mind right now?
The only thing I was thinking about was the people around me and if they were okay. And then at one point I was almost falling behind in the crowd that was pushing up so they could get out. and then my friend he helped me. He put himself behind me, so he made sure that nothing happened to me.
When everyone started running, I thought about my sister, Isabelle.
Come here, Isabelle. Get in here. You guys are right. Go ahead.
I just thought about her, and I called her and stuff, and trying to figure out where she was. And I ended up I was in the front of the school, and main office. She was in the back of the school, so I didn't know what to do. And she told me that she was safe, so I had to continue to go to Myers, and my mom picked her up from the subdivisions or something.
All right, last question to you. I mean, what's going through your mind right now after you saw someone actually get hit with a bullet?
I don't even know, to be honest. My mind was everywhere. I was so shocked, this happened. I seen it, and it's just I don't know how to explain. It's just a lot going on right now, and I feel send prayers to the people who did get hurt and stuff, because it's pretty sad.
Are you going to be able to go back to school? 3 of your fellow students killed that we're understanding now.
No, I won't be able to. It's a lot.
It is a lot, and a lot for anybody to deal with that situation, but for these young men and women who are only in high school to deal with this sad day, Taryn. 3 people dead, 3 people that many of these folks knew and loved inside that school, 6 others hurt, including 1 staff member. It is a dark day in Oxford.
Yes, and you heard that young woman there, Ms. Flores, talking about when she saw the shooter, what he appeared to be wearing, some green, perhaps some brown, it sounded like. She didn't know him personally, but having to see that is going to be a lot for those kids. We are working on getting some information confirmed about potentially a tweet a post that was sent out to parents and guardians, and when that happened. But
actually, we just got confirmation from 3 different parents now.
Okay.
The 2 parents that had sent this to us initially said that the Oxford School District had sent out a note earlier in the week, and a father in Oxford just confirmed with me that he also received this particular note, basically, and we'll get into it and we'll look at it later a little bit closely, but it basically is addressing the fact that there were some threats that they had heard about earlier before today, in which they say in this note that it was maybe social media posts that have been misinterpreted by students, going on to say that students and staff are safe at Oxford High School. This was sent out from the Wildcat account to several parents, many parents, I'm assuming all of them, perhaps on their Facebook page or somehow. And we're getting now the 3rd confirmation from a father this time saying they did receive a note assuring them that everything was under control. That was earlier before today's active shooter.
And let's just read one point here that's listed on this. It says some rumors have evolved from an incident last week, while others do not appear to have any connection. Student interpretation of social media posts and false information have exacerbated the overall concern. We want our parents and students to know there has been no threat to our building nor our students. So we do not know what that incident is at this point, but it appears that Oxford Schools was aware of something and that safety and security was in question. They said everybody was safe at that point, and that they have numerous highly trained professionals who work to keep our buildings safe and secure. That's what they said.
And Taryn, this was sent apparently on email to the parents at Oxford in the days preceding today. And so this was obviously a concern at some level. The father of one of the students who was inside ducking underneath the desk said to me just now that yes, that was a note that was sent to all parents via email earlier in the week. That note again in this ominous precursor talking about recognizing that there have been threats, perhaps on social media, that they were aware of, then going so far as to say that student interpretations of social media posts and false information have exacerbated the overall concern. That was the exact words from this post in an email to parents in Oxford. Nonetheless, at this point today, taking a look at the Monday morning quarterback situation of what could have been done will be addressed, and you better believe it will. But right now, the instant reaction is this terribly sad day that so many moms, dads, students have to mourn today, which is the loss of 3 fellow students, 6 others who were hurt, including 1 staff member as well.
I'm assuming for many parents who have received this notification from the school that One issue may be that the school said they have reviewed every concern shared with us and investigated all information provided. Now, is this connected to the 15-year-old suspect and what happened today? That is unclear. Is the incident that happened before that provoked this email? That is unclear as well. But it appears that Oxford schools, they were dealing with something that they thought that they had under control, and then we are here today where 3 students were killed and 6 people, including a teacher, were injured in a school shooting. A 15-year-old has been taken into custody. We're going to check in now with Dave Spencer, who is live outside the hospital with an update for us. Dave?
Yeah, Darren, you mentioned the 6 people that were injured. We were told that they were taken to various hospitals around the area. We don't have any update on their conditions, their ages, or anything like that. We are live outside of the trauma center, the trauma entrance here at McLaren Oakland in Pontiac, where we still see a sheriff deputy SUVs still parked outside. There's been small gatherings of people on hospital property. We are staying off hospital property per their request here outside of the trauma center, where roughly about 45 minutes ago we saw a small group of people run across with some urgency, try to make their way into the trauma entrance here. Now, I should note that we are in a pandemic. Obviously, visitor restriction is at the utmost secure right at this moment. So getting into the hospital is no easy task. There are other ways into the hospital outside of this trauma entrance. Of course, this is for the most urgent patients. One would only assume, given its proximity to Oxford High School, that some of the patients, some of the 6, would have been transferred here. There's also a McLaren in Lapeer that's not too far. There's one in there's an Ascension in Rochester, also not too far. So it's possible that any number of patients could have been taken to these area hospitals. Again, we don't have any updates at this time on any conditions of the 6. We're hoping to learn more, including some of their ages, what the extent of their injuries are during a news conference that's going to take place around 5 o'clock. That's the last update we had from the sheriff's office, is that we hope to learn more about the conditions. That's pretty much the situation here in Pontiac. Back to you.
Dave Spencer for us live. We want to, we're trying our best. We have so many crews that are out there right now, and all these different elements that are coming together to build a picture of a very sad day. One of those pictures is actual dash cam video that we want to show you right now, showing the moments preceding the arrival there at the school at Oxford High School after reports at 12:51 were sounded off on dispatch saying that there was an active shooter inside. Let's take a look at that video if we can. Again, this is dash cam video of what was happening heading into that scene that, as you can imagine, was a very chaotic one at that.
And we do know when that first 911 call came in at 12:51, we know that more than 100 911 calls were made right after that. So it really brought on this immense response from authorities, multiple jurisdictions, police agencies, fire. So we want to start to look at some of that dash cam video, perhaps from Oakland County Sheriff's Office. As they pulled up to the scene, we might be able to see how really students were trying to evacuate as quickly as possible.
I wanted to also mention, as we wait for that dash cam video, that parent who has been in contact with Fox 2 telling me that email from Oxford High School assuring parents of the safety of the school was sent on November 11th. He just checked, and he says that was a day that he kept his son home on that Friday, on November 11th, because of those active rumors that were going on social media that were then, as you heard, addressed by Oxford High School in that email to so many parents, basically saying, hey, we got this under control. There you're looking at dash cam video right now of the scene as, of course, emergency vehicles were hearing about this and then heading out to Oxford High School earlier this afternoon, about 1 o'clock this afternoon. You see it's making its way through, I believe, the village of Oxford there on the right. A small town with a small town feel. You go there, Taryn, you know that. You feel the small town vibe there.
Absolutely. It looks like they're pulling up as we speak. But maybe they're just now learning about what may be unfolding in the moments ahead.
Yeah. This is when really things got pretty chaotic. 3 different scenes emerging from this. The main scene, of course, where this terrible crime took place in which 3 people were killed, 6 hurt inside of Oxford High School. Right across the street there on Lapeer Road at the McDonald's is where the press briefing you saw was unfolding. And then right next door to that is at Meyer. And that was really the center of the heart of all of this, because all the students were told, hey, look, you got to get out of the high school when it was safe. And they were told to run to the Meyer. That's when they got to the Meyer to be reunited with their moms and dads about 45 minutes to an hour later.
Right. And many students who fled the scene didn't even really know what was going on at that point. They heard some gunshots and then took off. Others, as we have shown you through the video, were able to hide under desks and really being able to avoid the center where this was. We don't know exactly where it happened at this point, but we do know that around 1,600 students attend Oxford High School. So this is a very large school, and it's not clear how many people were around at the time. But because the school did have an emergency protocol, they were able to be directed to the proper door. Authorities were directed, and they were able to enter and detain that 15-year-old suspect very quickly. It is still very sad. We understand, as we mentioned, we don't have their ages yet, but 3 victims of the 6, 1 teacher. And so it's not clear if maybe perhaps it was in a classroom that this individual was heading when he had a semi-automatic handgun and fired multiple rounds. So we are waiting to hear more information about that at this point. But we know if you are out in the area of Tower Road or North Oxford Road, you want to be able to avoid that. Police still have it blocked off. Our Brandon Hudson has showed us that. So you'll want to avoid that area until we tell you it is clear at that point. But the FBI has been brought in. Superintendent was there at the last press conference, not answering many questions yet, but I think they're probably trying to figure out exactly what went down as well.
Yeah, the amount of shock that a superintendent of a school district who for so many years you dedicate your career to what? The education and the safety of students, and for this to be violated, for this to happen, for this student, this 15-year-old to come in shooting, guns blazing in the hallways of a high school, taking with it 3 students, hurting 6 other people, including 1 staff member. You're looking right now at a stretcher that's empty, heading into the school to take out yet another victim at Oxford High School. You're looking at the air evacuations. You know, anytime you see that, you're talking about a situation where someone is obviously in need of time, in need of blood, in need of a lot of medical care, and they need it soon. And that's exactly what you're looking at unfold. 2 helicopters, one from U of M, the one next door to that also landing, presumably taking people away, obviously, to the hospital. And then there you have it, more people being loaded up in these ambulances. I think you pointed out, Taryn, earlier, 60 of these ambulances that were coming from all over Metro Detroit, gathering there outside at the mouth of the opening of the high school to get these students out. The presence was incredible, and the response was incredible. The questions that so many of you have, parents in particular, people who live in that community, is what could have been done to prevent this? While many would say that this isn't the time to talk about that, many parents would tell you this is exactly when they want to start hearing that. Because right now, this situation, as they'll point out, should not have happened. 3 people killed, 6 people hurt inside of Oxford High School in this tight-knit community. And in about an hour, less than an hour's time, we're going to be getting another update from Oakland County Sheriff's deputies. Under Sheriff McCabe, I'm assuming Sheriff Bouchard as well will be there to talk to the news media again about those types of questions, not just what happened initially, but what did they know beforehand and what was done right after that.
And let's revisit this. This is something we talked about a little bit earlier, that being able to respond, for kids to know, for students to know what to do in a situation like this is key. It's something that we didn't know growing up. We didn't have to deal with. Many people haven't had to deal with. But now the generations, I know my own child, it's sad to think about, but at first grade, she was learning what to do in case of an active shooting situation. These are things that students have to learn now, and schools have to be prepared for in case something like this happens. Right now, we are looking at pictures with parents and students reuniting. Obviously, the toughest day you could imagine that these families, whether their kids were injured, killed or not, must have been going through, because to have that enter your mind and that panic setting in, and then what would you have to learn to follow, is just no one would ever want to have to go through.
Taryn, you mentioned you're a mother yourself of a girl that you send off to school every day, and you expect them to come home that day. This is for sure the worst nightmare of any parent. This scene over here that you're watching unfold from earlier today, this was about, I'd say about 1:30 this afternoon when this scene was unfolding. It was a car pickup that is like no other. It was flocked with sheriff's deputies and law enforcement and ambulances just in the distance with choppers in the air, parents waiting to see if their son, their daughter would be okay. And these relieved parents, still scared, still shaken, the students the same, walking back into a very changed world that they did not walk into school with this morning, walking away with a loss of a lot of innocence and a lot of security. And you'll see some parents and others who are running right now in this video. Now, again, this is from a couple of hours ago, but Dina Centofanti was out there, and as a mother herself was saying, who lives not far from that community, saying she knew and knows students who are inside of that school, Taryn, inside of Oxford High School, even though her kids attended a high school not far away. That's how tight-knit that community is. But to wait to see your child's face walk towards you had to have been probably one of the most grueling moments those parents have gone through.
Absolutely. The scene, you can see that did seem rather calm comparing what might have happened just initially when parents had learned about what happened. Obviously grateful that they're able to walk away with their children. We do understand that the 6 injured, including 1 teacher, have been taken to different hospitals. We are still waiting for their conditions at this point, and we do not know. The undersheriff also didn't want to really disclose which hospitals they are at this point. But we are trying to learn more information about the victims, including those 3 who passed away because of this 15-year-old shooter. So we do want to check in a little bit with Jessica Dupnack. Did you say? Okay. She is joining us now live back out at the scene with some information as well. Hi, Jessica.
Yeah, good evening. We are standing here where we're expected to hear from investigators, the Oakland County Under Sheriff in a little while, right around 5 o'clock. A press conference is set to brief us. But I do want to bring up something that you had talked about earlier that plans to be my first question. Earlier this month, I believe it was November 11th, there was a letter sent home from Oxford schools to high school parents, reassuring them almost of some threats or some potential conversations on social media. They were trying to calm parents' fears that there may be some substance to these threats. Again, I want to warn you, we don't know that there is a link between what happened out here today and what happened earlier this month in terms of those potential threats. But what they did say in that letter is that there are 2 highly trained security guards at the high school, along with the sheriff's deputy, basically, again, trying to calm parents that it's social media traffic, that not to worry, that their students are safe. Now, again, we did ask earlier if there was any premeditation here, if the 15-year-old sophomore that is believed to have done this and in custody put anything out on social media, wrote a note, told his friends that this was planned. But obviously here at 5 o'clock, when we're expected to hear from the undersheriff and the superintendent of the schools, we've got to ask again, was there threats? Was there things going around on social media that possibly indicated that this would become reality, a tragic reality out here in Oxford Township? The scene earlier you guys had mentioned, it has calmed down quite a bit. Again, behind me is where Dina is at Meyer, where families were reunited earlier. We're here in the media staging area, just kind of waiting to learn more. We have been told that we'll learn some more about the victims, ages, possibly names, and just really get to know these unfortunate situation for these families. We want to know exactly what happened here today, and just again, tragic news here in Oxford.
Is and Jessica, thank you very much. We know you will be asking the tough questions when they take to the podium once again.
Yeah, some tough moments there. It is a lot. When you heard the superintendent, Taryn, during the initial news conference there, around 2:45 this afternoon, when asked whether or not there were metal detectors or planned to be metal detectors, this superintendent was still very much in a state of shock and was able to basically say no, and I have nothing more to say to that but no. And then you take a look at, obviously, threats that parents say had preceded this. with email activation sent to all the parents saying, look, we're aware of these threats. Were these threats connected? We don't know. And we don't want to assume and make that connection ourselves. But there was a note, as Jessica pointed out, sent out on November 11th, basically talking about active threats that had been coming into the school via social media. Whether or not these are connected, it's right now not ours to guess, but rather law enforcement agents to confirm. So we'll wait for that until 5 o'clock.
Right. A lot of people, it's easier to connect the dots after the fact. We know that. But social media is taking off. We do know that it appears that some students have named who the shooter is, or at least tried to identify them. We're, of course, not doing that, but it has started. So that's going to become a situation that I'm sure police are dealing with as well. But it is scary that these students went to school today and then had to deal with a shooting where they had lost their peers or they become injured. So it's also going to take a lot of processing for these students who had to deal with such a massive emotional situation where their lives were literally at risk.
Yeah, and you're right about that, Taryn. These parents, when they go home today, I imagine extra tight hugs and kisses from those who are surviving, who get to go home and sit at the dinner table, albeit with tears in their eyes, in shock, because as you heard when you saw Charlie talk to those students were just still in the state of kind of shock. I mean, they had just been reunited perhaps with their parents, other friends, were able to talk about what they remember, what they saw. It's in the hours later that, of course, you remember what actually transpired, where you were, what could have happened. We do have a parent that we have talked to earlier today who can kind of reflect a little bit on that emotion and that terror that they felt in the moments afterwards.
He was not at school today. He just said that, "Ma, I don't feel comfortable. None of the kids that we go to school with are going today." That's all he said. Then prior to us finna go to McDonald's to get something to eat, a footage came through his phone. And that's what it was. And he was like, "Ma, look, this." I said, "Oh no, you're not about to let this just sit here like this. You have to go to the school." But I'm not sending him back to this school. This is ridiculous. There's too much going on too fast. Things are constantly happening, and I can't. All these kids, I mean, they're not bad kids, but safety is the first and foremost. Safety needs to be done for all these kids, even the staff. Oxford High, Lake Orion, all these schools around here with this type of thing going on, it should not be happening. It should be more of a focus on these kids of being able to succeed in life and to become something in life, not to be able to kill and have that much anger and hate within them. I really think prayer should be back in school. Maybe if they focus on that, maybe they would put the guns down and think more better than that.
Tough to watch those parents still trying to grapple with what has happened here, making pretty instant decisions there, Taryn, about what they want their student, where they want their student to go or not go after this all went down today.
Yeah, it is scary. We've been talking about that now for a couple of hours, but you have to think about what she's saying. I mean, kids, students, we've talked about this even through the pandemic. How they deal with things at this point. That's not clear if that even played a role. When they've talked about coping mechanisms and how you react and anger and things of that nature. Obviously, that's for a deeper discussion, but that could have played a role. We don't know anything about this student. We've heard, of course, every time there is a massive school shooting like this, we hear arguments about gun control. That has been an issue. We don't know the circumstances of how this 15-year-old was able to get his hands on a semi-automatic handgun and several magazines, or at least 2, we know at this point. But it's all scary, and it's a lot of questions that need to be answered for parents and the public at this point. We are waiting for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office to do a press conference at about 45 minutes from now to update us on the situation, the conditions of those who survived this shooting, and also perhaps even more about this shooter and what may have motivated this attack.
Things have changed, Taryn, as you pointed out, over the course of many years, in the midst of a global pandemic, the stress that people are feeling, having to deal with this as a parent or a young person sitting at home in this already complicated world is tough enough. But as you mentioned, we didn't grow up with that culture in high school. We didn't grow up having to deal with that. We know that the first time that the egg cracked open into this new world was 1999 when Columbine happened. And it was after that, of course, so many law enforcement agents worked with schools to say, look, here's how you respond to an active shooter situation. That was 99. And as you pointed out, Taryn, it's changed several times since then, even with the ALICE training that's in place in so many schools. And you watch how it's changed. It could be very well because of the way that training has changed and how students respond to a shooting, that more people weren't killed. More people are okay today because of that training. But nonetheless, right now, the initial shock of what's happened as we take a look at live pictures from the air from Sky Fox at the situation in the minutes following that school shooting in which 3 people were killed, 6 others hurt, including 1 staff member. It's going to take a while for this to sink in and for students to figure out how to frame this in their minds.
And just think about how much damage was done within that 5 minutes. Incredibly, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, they said that they were able to detain the shooter, bring him into custody 5 minutes after that first 911 call. But the fact that he was able to fire so many rounds and strike so many students, including a teacher, within that 5-minute period is a little hard to think about. Authorities do believe he was working alone at this point. They were able to sweep the building 3 times, and that was obviously what we've told you before, with the 6 injured and the 3 who lost their life during the shooting. But it does appear that he was acting alone. There is still no motive, or we do not know if anybody was specifically targeted at this point. Was he just opening fire, or was there someone specific that he was going after? That is something that we still have to find out. But it does appear that the Oxford High School, that area is clear now. We know that area schools did lock down during this, and schools are letting out at this point. So, or not locked down, some locked down, but others did have an extra security presence, I should say, to make sure that nothing more was going on. But fear and panic, nonetheless, being felt throughout Oakland County and throughout the state.
We're with you throughout this terrible day to make sure that you're updated on everything that's happening. Of course, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, as you mentioned, going to hold another briefing at 5 o'clock. We assume after that there'll be so much more to talk about in terms of the reaction. I want to mention real quickly, there's a multi-church prayer vigil that is happening tonight at Lake Point Community Church at 7 p.m. today. You know, when things like this happen, whether it be a school shooting situation or terrible days like 9/11, the only thing that community can do is gather and help hold each other up. And that's what's happening tonight at a multi-church prayer vigil tonight at Lake Point Community Church, 7 o'clock in Oxford.
All right, and you are right, Roop. But right now we are going to head over to Dave Spencer. He is live outside one of the hospitals where some students are being treated, with an update. Dave?
That's right, Taryn. I'm here outside McLaren in Pontiac, in downtown Pontiac, standing right outside of the trauma entrance. And just seconds ago, literally seconds ago, we watched as a man wearing an FBI coat walked out of that entrance, got into a car, and drove away. We've been here for roughly an hour. We are told that some of the 6 patients are treated at local hospitals. You would assume that this being one of them, being one of the largest McLaren hospitals close to Oxford in the area, downtown Pontiac. So one can assume that FBI agent was here trying to gather some information, possibly even talk to a victim to see what transpired in the moments earlier today that happened in the halls of Oxford High School, in which 3 students were killed, 6 others, including a teacher, were injured, and as mentioned, taken to local hospitals for treatment. As far as the extent of the injuries, that's something we're still waiting to hear. Hopefully we'll have some more information, as you guys mentioned, when we get that news update. In terms of what we've seen happen here outside of the hospital, since we have arrived, we've noticed that there are at least 2 now sheriff SUVs that have parked outside of the entrance, right up to the entrance. They've been there the entire time. We have not noticed any choppers, medevacs, anything like that come in or out. We have seen a security presence outside that front door. We earlier this afternoon, we noticed a couple, what appeared to be a family, scramble across the street, try to make their way into the entrance. Due to COVID protocols, likely they were not allowed to enter this way. Various other ways of entry into the hospital. So hopefully if they are coming here to meet up with a loved one that was injured in that attack earlier at the high school, that they did find a way to get in there and comfort that person. Just to bring you up to speed again on the latest development, though, a person wearing an FBI jacket just walked out of that emergency trauma entrance, got in his vehicle and drove away. Again, we hope to learn more this evening, as early as 45 minutes from now, when the Sheriff's Office, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, is expected to give us an update. They did not, during their initial update, give us any conditions on any of the 6 that were injured, only to say that 3 people had died and 6 others were being treated at local hospitals. And that's the story here from Pontiac. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when you talk to Dave, real quickly, stay on the line with us, Dave. When you have FBI talking to people who are in the hospital, if that's what they're doing, those are going to be the people who got the clearest look, have the better understanding of what happened inside that school at the time.
I can't hear anything if you're trying to speak to me. So again, I'll toss it back to you and hopefully have an update for you soon.
You bet. We'll talk to you then. Taryn, to the point we're making here is that obviously when you have FBI either talking to people who survived, they want to know what these people who have already gone through the worst day of their life, what they saw, what they heard, and what they noticed in the minutes preceding the shooting, during the shooting, and after. And that's the information that's going to help kind of put the pieces together so that people can understand what unfolded today.
Yes. And we do know that like we said from the beginning, there are so many questions, but perhaps the most troubling, as what we first reported with the Oxford High School sending out that letter to parents on November 11th, that there was rumblings of an issue. We are hearing from the Associated Press, though, that there was potentially threats of a school shooting, that might have been something that they were dealing with, that they were looking at the time. So what did the school know? What did the school district know? What did they do to try and prevent? That's what we're trying to figure out. We know Jessica Dubnak is going to be there to try to ask some of these questions, but it appears that students were hearing things of this nature beforehand and threats of this, and said that they do not believe that this was just random. That's what they're telling the Associated Press at this point. But it is troubling nonetheless. Kids are having to deal with this, that there was such a massive response. We're going to show you some of the scene here when this shooting took place. This is cops, police, deputies, multiple jurisdictions responding to the scene after those calls went out, taking really just minutes, we know, after the 911 call, the first was made. More than 100 911 calls were made in a matter of moment. Dispatch dealing with that, and then you had we know more than 60 ambulances also responding to the scene. You can see police lights and sirens there, getting there as quickly as possible, not knowing what they're going to find when they did. Parents concerned, rushing to the scene as well to hopefully reunite with their children. You see right there that very emotional moment with the mother giving her child a coat and grabbing very tightly, because she is one of the lucky ones that her child was able to survive this school shooting.
Oh, it's just so heartbreaking to watch these pictures up above, sounds that students shouldn't have to hear. On the inside of the high school moments earlier, the sounds of gunshots through those hallways. No student nor parent, no staff member should be hearing that. The sounds of 60 EMS units barreling to the front door, the side doors, the back doors, to rescue the survivors inside of Oxford High School should not be sounds that young people have to hear. Sadly, today, those sounds loud and clear inside the hallways of that high school. You know, I was listening to you earlier, Taryn, talk a little bit about warnings. Yeah. And it got me thinking about how often we hear about threats to schools. And, you know, you as a parent know this, and we in their newsroom know this. We get you hear about the tweets, you hear about an angry student, you hear about the person who didn't want to take the test, you hear about the person who, you know, makes the threat. And to try to decipher, as in this case it seems as though on November 11th, Oxford High School receiving word of something going down, talking about rumors on social media, addressing it with parents, assuring them that the school is safe. Whether or not these are connected, we don't know. But the responsibility that a school has to keep students safe, it is a lofty one, it is a tremendous one, and there are no certainties that come along with it. And
certainly that email that was sent to parents was a little more cryptic, a little more vague, not discussing threats of any sort of school shooting, but did refer to an incident that had happened, and then assuring parents and students that their students, their children, were safe. So what made them think that? What, in the school district, what did they learn to assure or try to reassure parents to send their students back? That is unclear. We know that Governor Gretchen Whitmer saying that gun violence right now is a public health crisis that claims lives every day. She's obviously pushing to reduce gun violence in Michigan and wanting people to come together to help kids feel safe at school. It is very tragic to think that a student will go to school and have to be confronted with something like this.
No, that's so true. The time is 4:25 if you're just joining us. The word lockdown is something that we have heard far before COVID-19 started. For schools, for kids growing up in today's society, those words mean a lot. It means that there's a threat made to a school. Usually those threats are empty and hollow. Today, those threats were full. And unfortunately, because of that, 3 people are dead at Oxford High School, 6 others hurt, including a staff member. And tonight, we're left asking a lot of questions and wondering how this could have happened, who the student was, and why did he do what he did. That shooter is in custody, and Taryn, you pointed out earlier, he's not speaking. He's quiet, so we're not going to hear anything from him, it seems, anytime soon.
Yes, he has invoked his rights. He has got an attorney. We did understand, though, that he did not put up a fight when deputies worked to bring him into custody or detain him. He did not fire at deputies as well. He was able to change one magazine. That's what the undersheriff told us, to be able to fire off even more rounds at the time of that moment. We do understand right now that the suspect, the 15-year-old, is being held at Children's Village in Oakland County. That's a juvenile detention center. And that is really, yes, very close to the Oakland County Sheriff's Office in Pontiac. But again, he has not chosen to speak to law enforcement at this point. He has asked for an attorney. So to be able to get any answers from him will be very tough at this point.
There was some kind of an incident that had taken place that perhaps, again, piecing this together isn't our job alone. It's going to take law enforcement to put these pieces together. November 11th, a note goes out to parents and to students, assuring them of the safety of the school after some kind of a threat. The Oxford Leader, which is a local paper in Oxford, in one article around the same time, talking about some kind of an incident in which they were talking about deer blood. A deer head found in the high school courtyard, part of a vandalism incident. Whether or not the note that went out, the social media traffic that they were hearing, the deer head, obviously, and then today, those pieces are going to be pieces that either are disconnected and are coincidental or are connected in some way. That's what law enforcement hopefully will be at least partially introducing to us at 5 o'clock in about 30 minutes time when they get together to talk to the press about what happened here.
And I believe when we were speaking to Charlie live a little bit earlier when he was interviewing the student, Miss Flores, he was speaking to her and she mentioned something, or one of the students, about a deer head and something of that nature. So the students are aware of something that happened and maybe the rumblings of a potential threat at the school. But as we mentioned, we're trying to get more information about that email that was sent out reassuring parents that there was no threat to their children. Again, we have right now Dave Spencer is at the hospital at McLaren and Pontiac. We're waiting for updates on condition at that point, on people there. We are also have Jessica Dubneck standing by, where the media is being positioned for a news conference coming up at 5 o'clock. We had Brandon Hudson too. We want people still to try. We understand it's still blocked at Oxford, North Oxford Road and Tower Road in that area that's by the school. Police still have that area blocked off, so you're going to want to avoid that area as well. But it seems that the school, they are in the process, or maybe it is at this point, cleared. And right now it is trying to figure out what happened. This is when the investigation really begins.
That's so true. And the investigation begins by investigators who have information. Unfortunately, right now, as you can well imagine, social media, I think it was pointed out earlier by Dina, it can be a gift and it can also be something that hurts people. And at this point, you want to make sure that you're staying very close to information that you know is accurate right now. For instance, some tweets indicating that there was more than one shooter. That's just not true. There was one shooter. That shooter is in custody, a 15-year-old who was taken into custody, as Taryn pointed out, without a fight. This is an active scene because of the fact that you have, as you mentioned, 1,600 people inside of a school that were dodging bullets at a certain point this afternoon at about 1 o'clock. Those who have been hurt, we believe, are all safely taken away and are hopefully getting the medical care they need, and hopefully those 6 people can survive. In the meantime, the others who are inside of that school, the investigation, as you point out now, just kind of begins. The FBI talking to victims saying, hey, what do you remember hearing? What do you remember seeing? And then putting those pieces together with what they're seeing inside the school.
There's so much going on right now, a lot of moving parts as, investigators. We have the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, who is really the main investigative unit handling this. But we also know that the FBI has been brought in to support this investigation. And then the school, the superintendent, who will be providing, as you can imagine, any sort of intel they may have, what may have led up to this. And if the previous incident that they had sent a letter about had any connection to what happened today. As for that 15-year-old, he's in custody, as we mentioned, at Oakland Village. That's in Pontiac, a juvenile detention center. That's where he's being held, and has asked for a lawyer. Families have learned about their loved ones and what has happened to them. It's certainly a sad day in the Oxford community as more details start to emerge.
Yeah, you're right about that. And those details are so important. People really, at this point, are craving, I would imagine, 2 things: a little bit of comfort from those around them, which they need, and the information about how this could have happened, why this happened, and what exactly happened inside of that school. The handgun was recovered. I think it was pointed out in the news conference that this person was very mindful, this suspect, unfortunately, of what he was doing, bringing in a gun, shooting off an entire round, reloading his semi-automatic handgun, and then shooting again. How many gunshots were there officially? We keep hearing 4 to 5. Were there more? Well, we know that there was 6 victims that were hurt, 1 staff member included in that, 3 others who were killed. So at least 9 people who were shot at some point inside of Oxford High School today.
I believe the undersheriff said between 15 and 20 shots were fired inside the school. Where that happened, that's still unclear at this point. Again, 1,600 students go to the school, so luckily the rest were able to get out in time. We've been talking about what parents have been going through and how they are dealing with this and the reunification with their students. Right now we want to hear from a parent about what they went through today.
My condolences goes out to all the staff and all of the students and the parents that have to suffer from this. And I hope this can get resolved, and I hope all the police and everybody can be able to do something about this and get a handle on it, because it can't be something that can just be brushed under the rug or something that just can be pushed away and think like life just gonna go on. It has to come to a stop. And it's not just in Detroit, Michigan. Now we see that it's all over. Crime can happen anywhere, and it doesn't have to happen with just an adult. Crime can happen with kids also. But it starts with the parents first.
Did your son reach out to you and text you, or how did you hear?
My son came to me. I was home with my son. My son came to me, and then he was like, "Look, Mom." And that's when I took initiative to go forward for this.
So this didn't surprise you, though?
Of course it surprised me. That's why I'm out here now. This is very devastating for me and my kids and all the other kids that's out here in Oxford. I mean, Oxford is a small town, and everybody know it's not really big like Detroit. So it's very small, so everybody know everybody, and these kids don't deserve to even go through this. This is not something that we could just push under the rug, and I hope everybody can be able to acknowledge that.
You point out how easy it is to get into town with one road, one major, coming in from Metro Detroit, you take that Lapeer Road exit and you head in, and there you are, and there you are in Oxford, nestled between, Lake Orion and Oakland Township and Rochester. They keep talking about this feeling like a small town, and I know all through Metro Detroit, every cluster of towns from Franklin to Bloomfield feel like they got a small town on their hands, but this truly is small town America, and a village that looks out for one another. Tonight, a village that will be holding on to each other tightly after this terrible tragedy.
And we want to recap once again for anybody who may be just joining us, the school shooting that really began at 12:51. That's when the 911 call came in. This is according to the Oakland County Undersheriff. Since then, there was multiple 911 calls. Deputies, multiple agencies rushed to the scene. They were able to get there within 5 minutes and detain the 15-year-old suspect, who is now in custody at Children's Village in Pontiac, that is near the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. He has retained a lawyer and is not speaking. We do understand that. He had a handgun, a semi-automatic handgun. How he got that weapon, that is unclear. That is a big question tonight, how a 15-year-old would get a weapon. Also, was he in school today, or did he show up later on and then enter the school where this shooting unfolded? Those are questions that we need answered at this point, but we know the FBI is involved, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office investigating, and the superintendent is also answering questions.
We are about 25 minutes away now from a news conference to hear again from Oakland County Sheriff Undersheriff Mike McCabe to get an update on so many of the questions that we asked about 2:30, about 2 hours ago, that he simply didn't have the answers to at the time. In the meantime, we've checked in with Dave Spencer live at the hospital. He says FBI agents are in there talking to people who obviously have witnessed something inside. And by piecing all of that together, perhaps by 5 o'clock, we'll have a little more information, but it will likely be a few more hours after that, probably closer to later tonight or tomorrow, before we truly understand the scope and really how this all came together. Where did this guy, as you say, get this gun? When did he come in? Who is he targeting? Those are all questions that so many parents have. But I know right now that any mom and dad who's watching this in Metro Detroit, especially in that northern Oakland County, I know that the main thing right now is you're mourning the loss of 3 of your own community members in this village of Oxford. 3 young people who should not have been taken away today, and that were.
Our hearts break for all of them, and certainly we are sending our thoughts and prayers to the families affected directly by the school shooting. I do want to read the statement by Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter. We're just getting this. He said, "I am horrified by this tragic shooting at Oxford High School today. The entire Oakland County community is in shock by this terrifying display of violence, and our thoughts are with Oxford families tonight. I am grateful for the quick response from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and all first responders. The county's Emergency Operations Center has been activated to offer any support and assistance needed by first responders and the families in Oxford today and in the days ahead." And we have touched on this. That was the end of his statement, by the way, but we have touched on this. This was a massive response by so many agencies who were able to get to work so quickly to make sure that this situation did not become even more deadly. They were able to respond in such a quick manner. The school was able to mark the doors so deputies knew where to enter and was able to intervene and get that shooter before he was able to hurt anybody else. We know that students knew what to do because they had the specific training that they needed to be able to protect themselves inside the school or get out as quickly as possible. So there were many things at play, including the ambulances who responded and were able to take students to hospitals which could treat them right away. So really, it was quite an undertaking for what unfolded here today.
No, so true. And it takes all those hands on deck within 5 minutes to get to that school, to stop this shooter from doing what he was doing, to nab him, to put him in custody, secure the scene, and assure those parents that they can get those kids. You know, that scene, so chaotic when it first occurred, of course, right before 1 o'clock, because the very crime scene was also the spot where all the victims were, where all the parents wanted to come get their kids. And they staged right outside of there across the street at the Meyer to make sure that those parents had a place to pick up the kids. They got those kids to safety. But now those big questions still loom as to why this happened. How did this young person get a gun into the school? Why did he do what he did? And that's exactly what all of our reporters on the ground right now are waiting to hear from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department when they brief the media coming up in about 20 minutes with more information. The last time we heard from them, Taryn, just about two 2 hours and 10 minutes ago. So it's been a minute, and it's going to likely, hopefully, shed some more light and some more information that'll help these parents out.
And initially, when the shooting happened, we did think that we were being told that 4 to 6 people were injured. We didn't have any more information than that. This is breaking news. This is unfolding as we speak. So we are learning this really in just a moment, and then passing it on to you. But then we do understand, and this is something that we'll have to find out as well, that the deputies, the SWAT team, did do a second and a third sweep. Did they find more injured students and perhaps a teacher when they did that second sweep? That is unclear, but that's something that they do as well as part of their emergency protocol. We know the third time they went through that the scene was clear. So what they found when, that's something that I think we're interested in as well.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. Tonight, again, there's a vigil that's taking place for all the victims in Oxford at 7 o'clock, and that's going to be a really important place for a lot of young people to head to the Lake Point Community Church there in Oxford at 7 o'clock tonight. Taryn, anytime you cover one of these, you know that the tragedy that took place is not going to be, you can't really desensitize yourself from that. It is a terrible, awful thing that happened. The only thing that community can do at this point is to hold on to one another, and that's what they plan to do tonight at Lake Point Community Church at 7 o'clock in Oxford. And I can tell you already, I imagine, knowing that town, it's going to be packed. You know, I live not far from there, Taryn, and I was traveling down Adams Road coming to work today, just about 1:15, 1:20, and I saw 6 sheriff's deputies fly past me, and then 3 undercover deputies, it seemed, that also had their lights on that were flying past me. I pulled over to the side of the road, called the station, told them about it, and we quickly connected the dots. That was the same scene that, of course, was unfolding not far from where I was, probably about 10 minutes away at Oxford High School. A day that will change the lives of so many of those 1,600 students tonight.
As we know, every time there is a massive school shooting like this, it always sparks the gun debate. We'll certainly be hearing that in the days ahead. But what will also be interesting is how other school districts may react to this, how they may learn from this. If we might see metal detectors on the way into schools now, because that's something that Oxford High School did not have. Perhaps some of these school districts where they have not done the school shooting safety protocols and training, maybe that would encourage them to do it now. So if anything, maybe some of the neighboring school districts or throughout the state can learn from this terrible tragedy to prevent something like that happening there.
You know, we have a team of reporters, Taryn, as you know, of course, on the ground right now. Jessica Dupnack is waiting for, of course, the Oakland County Sheriff's deputies to address the media at 5 o'clock today. We also have Dave Spencer, who's watching closely what's happening at the hospital. And I got to tell you that was the hardest thing to watch, of course, is seeing those 60 ambulances. But the hardest thing to watch, but also one of the most relieving things to see, is all that help that was coming to aid these students who were hurt in this tragedy. In all, 6 people hurt, 3 killed. But those 2 helicopters, those medevac helicopters that landed, truly it takes your breath away and makes you realize the magnitude of this tragedy.
Yes.
When you know that 2 people had to, of course, be in such bad shape that they needed blood and life support right away.
And we've been told that a second press conference is going to be held really within 15 minutes, perhaps a little sooner. We are waiting to get an update from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. So many people tweeting, posting, sharing thoughts and prayers going out to the victims and their families, all the students and staff and families impacted by the Oxford school shooting. Hashtag Oxford High School. The support that you're feeling from the community and beyond is really starting to pour out. It is troubling to know what happened today and how many parents are dealing with the loss or perhaps an injured student. Another issue is what the school district may have known prior to this and whether there may have been a warning. Was it ignored, or was it brushed off, or was it dealt with? Was it separate? These are questions that all need to be answered, and parents certainly would want the answers to as they meet and discuss with the public in moments from now.
Yeah, you're right about that, Taryn. And you mentioned the people who are gone, the 3 students who were killed. You mentioned the 6 other people who were hurt, 5 students, 1 adult, 1 staff member. And then the other people who were in the school who we heard from, and if we could cue up some of that sound from Charlie Langton and those young people, amazingly courageous young people to deal with that and then afterwards recount it with us. But what really comes to mind is the amount of healing that will have to happen after this shock is over. Those young people who were a part of that community, their lives changed forever. And Charlie Langton had a chance to talk to some of them, those young people, just earlier today.
Isabelle Flores, 15 years old, freshman. Tell us where you were when you heard these shots.
Okay, I was in the back during oral history where the classes were at, and I was walking to my class, and I hear gunshots, and I seen the guy bleeding through his cheek, and we all ran through like the back where the pool's at, and then we went through the gym, and then we went in the back, and the guy was still bleeding, and then we just all went from the back to all the houses in the back, and the ambulance started coming, make sure everybody was okay, make sure the guy was okay, but he was bleeding, ripped, and that's all I seen.
So this is after lunch this happened, and this was between the classes, between lunch and then the changing of the next class, is that right?
Yes.
And in the area of the school, it was in the history class, that area. Describe the area where those shots were.
In the hallway, there was 2 doors, and there was another door right here, a window, and you keep walking, there was like lockers right there, and then when you turn, it was like right there. All I hear was 5 gunshots nonstop, kept going, and then after that, I was out the building.
And then you saw one of the people hit just describe the person. You didn't know this student though, did you?
I did not know this student, but he was wearing green, kind of like a brunette color. He had like long hair, kind of like to his ears. He khaki pants, and like shoes were like black, and they were like Nike, and he was just bleeding. That's all I seen.
Where was he bleeding from?
He was bleeding from the face, the chin right here, and through his arm, dripping blood.
What did you think when you saw this?
Repeat that again?
No, it's just you must have been upset when you saw this. Then
yes, I froze.
Was someone helping him, coming to his rescue?
No, he was walking by himself at first, and then everybody looked at him, and they seen he was bleeding, so they helped him. When we got out, they helped him, and then he walked by himself, and he went in the car.
All right, you were trying to get out of the school. Is that Spartan time? Could you describe the running? People were running, is that right?
Yes, people were running. The teacher stopped us at first because she didn't know what was going on, but the teacher got pushed, and then we just ran out.
Where did you go after you got out of the school?
I went from the back where where they play football, where the football is area, and I went down there, and then I went by these houses where the subdivision was at houses.
All right, Isabelle, thank you. Let me bring in a couple of other people here. First of all, Raquel, and your friends are over here, Ricardo and George. But Raquel, you heard the shots as well. And what did you do when you heard all the shots?
I stopped and froze for a bit because I didn't know what that was. But then I heard a second shot go off, and I just ran out the door, just ran with my friend.
And tell us, describe what you guys were doing too.
We were walking with our other friend, Damien, and the first shot went off, and we kind of just stood there thinking what it was. Then the second one went off. We kind of did the same thing. And the third one went off, and that's when, everyone started running, and so did we. We ran, the opposite direction from the bullets.
Did you know what was going on? And did anybody see the shooter?
No, I did not.
Do you know the student? And you did not see anyone that was hit, is that right?
No, no.
So what was going on? Was this chaos? Or did you know what was going on, or you just wanted to get out?
Just wanted to get out. Yeah.
Pure chaos. Pure chaos. Right when everyone was getting out, people were getting into their cars. It was just, everyone was just afraid to get hit.
Everybody was falling.
Yeah.
I fell. I fell.
You fell?
Yeah, I fell.
You fell trying to get out?
Yeah, it was because it was really slippery outside.
It was like a stampede or something to get out?
Not really, because I was one of the first ones out. So it was not that many people, but then later on there was.
And I understand that you guys went to the Meijer. Is that where you were? Why the Meijer? Is that close by?
We were just told to. Yeah. We were just told to go there.
Yeah. And then what happened? How'd you leave the school? Because you guys, this is Pontiac. It's about a 20-minute drive from where we're at right now to the school or so. So how did you get from the Meijer parking lot back to your house here?
Right when I ran out those doors, I called my mom, panicking to pick me up, to get a little head start for her to get here.
Looking back on what happened, what's going through your mind right now?
The only thing I was thinking about was the people around me and if they were okay. And then at one point I was almost falling behind in the crowd that was pushing up so they could get out. And then my friend he helped me. He put himself behind me. So like he made sure that nothing happened to me.
When everyone started running, I thought about my sister, Isabelle.
Come here, Isabelle. Get in here. You guys are right. Go ahead.
I just thought about her, and like I called her and stuff, and trying to figure out where she was. And I ended up I was in the front of the school, and main office. She was in the back of the school, so I didn't know what to do. And she told me that she was safe, so I had to continue to go to Myers, and my mom picked her up from the subdivisions or something.
All right, last question to you. I mean, what's going through your mind right now after you saw someone actually get hit with a bullet?
I don't even know, to be honest. My mind was everywhere. I was so shocked this happened. I seen it, and it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's just a lot going on right now, and I feel send prayers to the people who did get hurt and stuff, because it's pretty sad.
Are you going to be able to go back to school? 3 of your fellow students killed that we're understanding now.
No, I won't be able to. It's a lot.
Won't be able to go back right away anytime soon, and that likely won't be the case for some time. These students are going to be home for a while trying to deal with the depth of what happened today at about 12:55 this afternoon when shots rang out inside of Oxford High School.
And right now we are hearing from Michigan leaders, the governor calling gun violence a public health crisis, other Michigan leaders calling this school shooting horrifying and unacceptable. So we are waiting right now on that press conference from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office that is expected to begin at 5 p.m. We will be taking that live. We do have our Sky Fox right now over the scene of, I believe, the school. At this point, we were going to take a look at that video right now. This is live. Right now we're looking at live pictures. Recapping once again, 3 students were killed, 6 injured. One of those 6, a teacher at the school. The 15-year-old suspect who used a semi-automatic handgun, fired off several rounds, and has now been taken into custody. The undersheriff says was detained within 5 minutes of the first 911 call. He is now at Oakland Village, Children's Village in Oakland County, where he is in custody. He has asked for a lawyer and is not speaking at this point because he has invoked his rights. But a lot of parents have questions, a lot of people within the community, a lot of students may know even more at this point. You can imagine, Roop, that investigators will be speaking to students about what they know, what they have heard, and what they have seen on social media leading up to this deadly day.
Just an eerie scene outside of Oxford High School at a time that you don't expect to see the student parking lot filled with cars, as though time froze at 12:55 today. All those students, of course, instead of heading in their cars or getting on buses, they ran across the street right there on the Pier Road across from the high school to the Meyer parking lot, which became a staging area for these young people to be reunited with their moms and their dads, their parents. And now this area, the high school, is instead really the staging area for all of the law enforcement. That you see their command units there, their satellite units. They're setting up shop. They're not leaving anytime soon until they get to the bottom of exactly how everything unfolded inside. We heard from Dave Spencer earlier at the hospital in Pontiac, and inside of McLaren, the question that the FBI agents were asking those survivors who were inside being treated for their injuries. 6 people hurt, 1 staff member. Asking those questions, what did you see in the moments before the shooting took place?
Yeah.
How did that all go down?
Roop, we are also hearing now from the President Biden weighing in, speaking from Minnesota. He says about the Oxford school shooting, quote, "My heart goes out to the families that are enduring the unimaginable grief of losing a loved one." He goes on to say, "You've got to know that whole community has to be in a state of shock right now." So even the President weighing in from Minnesota on what happened today in Oxford. Sad day.
It certainly is. You know, when you hear about school shootings, parents, kids, everybody who's watching, you think about it happening somewhere else. And sadly, this type of thing happens all the time. We know how often mass shootings happen in this country. And yes, as you mentioned earlier, Taryn, at schools in our country as well. But when it happens in your own backyard, and you see these command vehicles outside getting to the bottom of it, sheriff's deputies crawling through that school right now, trying to figure out exactly and piece together how everything went down the way it did. As you mentioned, the 15-year-old is in custody. When this first went down, we knew right away that there was one suspect in custody. There were questions as to whether or not there were more. And the good news here is that that person is in custody, however, not without doing a lot of damage. You're hearing in the background there our live reporters, including Charlie Langton, getting ready to go live with us to talk about what's been unfolding right in front of us here. A couple different locations, Taryn. You're looking at the high school right now, right across the street on Lapeer Road. That's where the parents were reunited at the Meyer, and right next door to that is the McDonald's parking lot. That's where the news media will be addressing, or rather the sheriff's deputies will be addressing the media in a few minutes.
And we are looking at live pictures, as you said, of the area where the school is and where that press conference will be taking place. Are we going to check in with Charlie Langton right now first, or are we going to wait on that? Okay, we were hearing from Charlie Langton, just as Roop said, preparing for that live shot, but we do have several Fox 2 reporters on scene at the hospital, at the news conference, and speaking to parents and students about what they have dealt with. Certainly some tough days moving forward. That 15-year-old is in custody. Investigation is underway. Why? And we will bring up again, was there any sort of warning when Oxford schools sent out an email on November 11th talking about some sort of incident, calling it just rumors, and that the situation was under control, that it was safe, and that students could return to school? Was that connected to this? Was it the same shooter that was involved in that potential threat? These are questions that we have that we're looking to get answered, but it may take some time.
And 19 days ago is when that email was sent out to parents in Oxford addressing some concerns that students had seen on social media about some disturbing messages coming from other students. Those messages in that email, the email was hoping to quell some of the fears of these parents out there. And that, again, was 19 days ago. So whether or not they were related, we'll have to wait and see. And I know the superintendent was talking earlier at the 2:30 news conference. He'll be there again, I would imagine, coming up at 5 o'clock in about 4 minutes. And that's when we're going to be hearing again from law enforcement. I want to be talking to them in just a moment. You know, I got to tell you, and Taryn, you mentioned this, right, when you sat down in that chair on the other side of the studio and you said, as a parent, this is something that every single time you send your child to school, you don't want to have to think about, but you worry about it every once in a while when you hear about things like this. Sadly, this hits so close to home in that small village of Oxford. And when you saw those parents hugging their children, reuniting with them, it really spoke to the magnitude of the fear. And yes, the comfort that they had when they were able to see their parents, the comfort 3 students here will sadly never have.
And we did mention that Governor Whitmer did release a statement on this, really calling gun violence a national crisis. But we also are now hearing from Attorney General Dana Nessel. She has also put out some information saying that her heart goes out to the parents who have lost their children, and also to the students, teachers, staff, and families reeling from the tragedy of the school shooting within their community. She says that her department has reached out to local law enforcement to offer assistance as the investigation unfolds. She also wants to extend the gratitude, sincere gratitude, to first responders on the scene. She also added, we must act properly to address gun violence in our schools and the ongoing threat of another unconscionable tragedy if we continue to only offer thoughts and prayers. Our kids deserve better, end quote. So this is what we're seeing and hearing moving forward. Several Michigan leaders weighing in, calling this unacceptable, that they are really working to address a situation with gun violence. It is unknown how this 15-year-old was able to get his hands on a semi-automatic handgun and was able to injure 6 people and kill 3 students.
You know, there's a lot of people focusing on how often this happens, but really when it happens in your town like this, in our Metro Detroit area, you can't even help but remember the last time that something like this happened. But I remember years and years ago in the Flint community in Genesee County, Buell Elementary School was the scene of a 6-year-old who was shot by another student who had brought a gun to school. The question that rang true then, that rings through today, which is whether it's a 6-year-old or a 15-year-old, how did this person get a gun into the school? How did this person plan this and get away with it the way this person did? That's something that will have to be addressed, as we say. In about a minute's time, we're going to be checking in with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department that will be holding another news conference. I know Hugh and Monica will be taking over our coverage here at 5 o'clock as well, but I think we want to go right to the news conference right now.
All right.
Sheriff's headquarters in Pontiac. On telegraph, the governor's here. Chief Lyon, retired chief from Waterford, now worked for Rochester Hills Fire Department. Major Childs, Major Snary's here. FBI was here. U.S. Marshal, ATF was here. Just to tell you, some of the departments that have assisted us were the Southfield PD, Troy PD, Bloomfield Township PD, Michigan State Police, Oxford Village, FBI, U.S. Marshal, huge amount of fire departments, Lapeer County Sheriff's Office. So, as I told you earlier today, we had about 12:51. We had over 100 911 calls into our dispatch center of an active shooter at the Oxford High School, which is right across the way there. You've all seen it. Deputies responded and within 5 minutes had the suspect in custody. He did not cause any problems. He gave the weapon up. He did have the weapon on him at the time. It was a semi-automatic handgun. He'd fired multiple shots. We have updated information on the number of deceased. It is 3. We have 3 students, a 16-year-old male, a 14-year-old female, and a 17-year-old female. We also have 8 others that were shot in various stages at 3 different hospitals, McLaren Lapeer, McLaren Pontiac, and St. Joe's in Pontiac. The 2 people are currently in surgery, do not have their condition. The other 6 are all in stable condition with various gunshot wounds. The suspect, like I said, 15 years old, student of Oxford High School, lives in the village of Oxford. And if there's, Governor, if you want to say anything, and then I'll take any questions after that.
Well, I just appreciate the quick response of all of our first responders. My heart goes out to the families. This is an unimaginable tragedy. I hope that we can all rise to the occasion and wrap our arms around the families, the affected children and school personnel, and this community. It is an unimaginable tragedy, and I just wanted to be here because I think this is an important moment for us to support one another, to support this community, and I want to thank our first responders again.
Take limited questions. Again, we'll have much more detail tonight at 10. I can tell you we're still actively working the scene. Our forensic lab is here, multiple detectives. We had over 100 sheriff's deputies and patrol cars and unmarked cars respond, plus a huge amount of patrol cars from other area agencies that I listed prior to this.
Anything new on motivation as to what might have motivated him to do this?
I'm sorry, sir?
Anything new on what might have motivated him?
We don't have a motive at this point in time. We are still investigating that.
Mike, what do you know about possible warning signs we're hearing from students and parents?
We're hearing all kinds of rumors about warning signs. I can tell you that we have a school liaison deputy that's assigned to the high school. I'm not aware of, and we are not aware of any warnings. If there were, I can tell you we work very closely with Tim Throne, the superintendent, and the principal at the school. If there were, I got to believe they would have told us. There's all kinds of stuff out on social media. Please don't believe everything you hear and see on social media. I've seen one screenshot of something about allegedly the shooter warning people not to come to school today, but that was somebody that got it from somebody. So please be careful with that information. There's a lot of, because of social media, there's a lot of stuff out there. I can't confirm whether it's true or not. Ultimately, we will get to the bottom of this. We're executing a search warrant at the suspect's house. As I said, he's not cooperating with us at this point in time.
So you have made contact with the parents? Can you say what they are talking about yet? Have you had a chance to talk?
We have talked to the parents, and all I can tell you is they didn't want their son to talk to us, and they've hired an attorney.
Was the student in school in class today? Or
Yes, he was in class today, yes.
Did the shooting happen in a class?
The shooting happened in the school. Most of the shootings, as my understanding, is in the south end of the school. I can't tell you specifically if it was in a classroom, or we will have more detail for you at 10 o'clock tonight.
Do we know the students that were shot? Were they in the hallway in the classroom with him? Do we know any more details on where
I can't tell you that because I don't know.
Were they targeted specifically?
We don't know if they were targeted. We will get to the bottom of that as we get further into this investigation.
Whose weapon was it?
I'm sorry?
This quick response obviously saved many lives.
Absolutely. I can tell you, Oxford Community Schools and our office have trained multiple times on active shooters. This school district's been very good in training their personnel and their students on active shooters.
Governor, does this mean a legal re-examination of training in schools?
I think it's too early. I think it's too early to talk about policies that might need to change as a result of this. We're relying on law enforcement to share information as it is available, but at this point, I think we need to focus on the tragedy at hand in the moment.
How did you hear about this, Governor? Can you just talk to us about when you heard about this?
My team has been in communication with Dave Coulter and leadership here in Oakland County, the Sheriff's Office, Michigan State Police, and so I heard pretty quickly, but obviously we've been monitoring it, not having a lot of information, and so I appreciate the work that they're doing to keep us all informed.
We have seen these in other states and other parts of the country. Now it's here. What does that say?
That this is a uniquely American problem that we need to address, but at this juncture, I think we need to focus on the community, the families, supporting all the first responders, including the incredible people at our hospitals that are working so hard to save the lives of those who are fighting for their lives right now.
And I can tell you're so deep, and as you should be. You're a mom and you're a human being. You're so deeply affected by this. Talk to us about that.
I think this is every parent's worst nightmare.
Mike, you're still working the scene of the school.
Correct.
Chances are school will not be held there tomorrow or anytime soon, correct?
I got to believe school's not going to be in session tomorrow. That's correct.
Yeah, you have a big scene.
That is correct. We've done 3 sweeps of the high school to make sure that there's no other victims or anything else that we need to be aware of. But it's a fairly large crime scene. Like I said, our forensic lab is here processing the scene. I can tell you that all the parents and relatives have been notified of the deceased and of everyone that is that was shot, and a deputy has been assigned to each and every family.
Do you know where he obtained the weapon?
Yes, I know, but I'm not going to say at this point in time.
You said you talked to the parents of the shooter.
Very briefly.
Are they cooperating?
Well, in that they came and saw their son at our Oxford Township substation and then left.
And they told him not to speak to police?
That's correct, which is his right.
But that would also indicate not a willingness to cooperate at this time.
Well, at this time, who knows what the future brings.
He's in Pontiac now, is that correct?
He's at Pontiac Children's Village. He's 15 years old, so he's lodged as a juvenile at this point in time. He could be charged as an adult. Again, that's totally up to the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office.
How would you characterize the parents? Were they cooperative?
You know,
I taking any of your questions?
I can't say I wasn't there. I can just tell you they came to the substation, they met with their son, they told us that they would not let him talk. In a juvenile, we have to get permission from the parents or the guardian of that juvenile in order to speak to them, and we did not get that.
2 letters sent home to parents this month regarding other threats. Any indication that they're tied together?
No, there's no indication of that. I know a question came up earlier about a deer head incident. This is absolutely unrelated. That was a different incident, a different student.
Any indication that this shooter was bullied in school?
No indication at this point in time, but it's ongoing, so I don't know.
Do you know whether or not this is a student who had contact with discipline?
I got 2 talking at once. Go ahead.
What does the school do to make sure guns aren't getting in, and how might that have broken down?
Well, we have a deputy assigned to the school full-time, obviously. Not all schools have metal detectors. They have one entrance. This school district has taken great care, in my opinion. I live here. I live about 1.5 miles from here. I can tell you, I know the superintendent personally. He has been very proactive in terms of trying to protect the school district. So I think they've done everything they can. Should every school and every building have metal detectors? It's very expensive, but I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Was the deputy on duty the one who actually...
Hang on, you go next.
How much ammunition did he have on him?
He fired multiple shots, somewhere in the area of 15 to 20 at this point in time.
Undersheriff, do you know whether or not this is a student who had contact with discipline in the past with this school system?
I don't know that.
Undersheriff, was it a ghost gun?
What, a ghost gun?
A gun that was
No. No.
unregistered?
No, I can tell you it was not.
Was it firearm that he legally had?
I can't say. I can just tell you it's not a ghost gun.
Was it
registered to a family member?
I'm not going to get into that at this point in time.
Was the deputy assigned to the school the one who apprehended
The
him?
deputy and another deputy who also responded were the ones that took him into custody.
And you said that was all within 5 minutes.
My information is from the time the first call came in to the time he was taken into custody was 5 minutes, approximately 5 minutes. We had over 100 911 calls come into our 911 center.
And having said that, can you characterize if they had not intervened within that 5 minutes, this could have been a lot worse and he could have kept shooting, perhaps?
I don't know if he ran out of bullets or not at this point in time, so I don't want to speculate.
Was the assigned deputy in the building at the time of the shooting?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Did the assigned deputy, the full-time deputy, encounter the shooter, or was he inside the building when it happened?
He and another deputy took him in custody in the building. I'm sorry?
Oh, what about the 6 that are injured? Howard, you got any updates on their
I just got the 2 are in surgery. We don't know their conditions. And 6 are in stable condition. There were a total of 11. 3 dead, 8 shot.
8 shot.
Correct. Yeah, updated from the last time we were here. Correct.
Do you know if there's surveillance video in the school that might assist?
There is a lot. This school district does a great job with cameras. There are multiple cameras that detectives are going to have to go through and search.
How's the FBI assisting?
They're here to give us all the support we need. As you know, the Special Agent in Charge Waters was here earlier, and they will give us technical assistance in terms of, we've got social media searches, we have potential cell phones. There are 1,800 students that go to this high school, okay? I'm not saying all 1,800 were here today, but we have to interview each and every one if they have any knowledge whatsoever.
Do you have any information on the makeup of the 11 injured between teachers and students?
One teacher, the rest are students.
Under Sheriff, I assume that you're also looking for information from the public, anybody who's had contact with this young man or anybody. So why don't you make your plea to the public?
Yeah, please, if anybody has any information, you can call the Sheriff's Dispatch Center at 248-858-4911. That's 248-858-4911.
What kind of information are you looking for from the public?
Any information they may have. If they've heard, if they know anything at all about this young man or what was going to happen or what happened today, they can call us.
To your knowledge, is this suspect had any prior run-ins with law enforcement?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thanks, Under Sheriff.
Okay, all right. We'll be 10 again, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock here?
No, at Sheriff's Headquarters in Pontiac, 38 East, Building 38 East, 1200 North Telegraph. It'll be a lot warmer because we'll be inside.
So your first and last name again?
Michael McCabe, MCCABE.
You have been watching continuing live coverage of today's mass shooting at the Oxford High School. Oakland County Undersheriff Mike McCabe giving us the latest information and the latest developments in this. Right now, we do know that the shooter, the alleged shooter, is a 15-year-old student. He is in custody. We are told he has lawyered up, and investigators still trying to sort out what happened today.
We have live team coverage right now, starting with Fox News' Jessica Dupnack. Jessica, what can you tell us so far?
Good evening. We just heard from Oakland County Undersheriff Mike McCabe and some new information. We now know a total of 11 people, 10 students, 1 teacher have been shot, 3 are fatal. The other 8 are in the hospital, 2 of those in surgery right now. That is new information updated since the last time we spoke with the Undersheriff. Now, we do know that the 15-year-old sophomore, a male student at Oxford High School, was in school today when he brought that handgun with several magazines and opened fire, 15 to 20 or so shots. It was about a 5-minute situation before deputies were able to arrest him and take him into custody. He is not cooperating, even up until now, being held at a juvenile detention facility in Pontiac right now. He has obtained a lawyer hired by his parents. His parents are somewhat cooperating. They have seen their son, and that was about it. Undersheriff Mike McCabe, who led the press conference, said he spoke with those parents. There wasn't much to say at that point. Where things stand right now, we'll be getting another update from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department around 10 o'clock today, where we'll hear this evening in Pontiac at their facility to hopefully get even more information. They did one final sweep of the school. The school is cleared out at this point. The Undersheriff says it will likely be several days before school is back in session. Now, they are getting assistance from the FBI in this investigation, and that will be to do interviews with the 1,800 or so students that may have knowledge of this situation. And you have to imagine there are security cameras to go through, all kinds of social media traffic and videos to go through as well. So this is a lengthy, time-consuming investigation, and there'll be a lot of help from the feds on this one. Now, we talked quite a bit throughout the afternoon about any warning signs, potential that maybe there were warning signs that this was going to happen. Now, there were 2 letters sent home to parents in November. The first on November 4th regarding a graffiti incident at the school, and then another about some potential threats on social media. At this point, investigators say those situations are not related, but I do caution very early in this investigation, there is a lot of evidence to go through before they make any determination as to if there was anything that signified that this was going to happen. Now, again, the school does not have metal detectors, which is not necessarily unusual, especially in a more rural district in northern Oakland County, but I'm sure they'll be reevaluating their policy at the school. We did just hear from the governor as well. She made her presence known, very visibly upset, calling this a parent's worst nightmare. We did ask her if now that this hits home, now that we have a school shooting here in Metro Detroit, if that means maybe policies, training will change. She said it is too early to tell. She is asking that people really just wrap their arms around these families and this awful tragedy here in Oxford Township. We're going to toss over to Dina right now, who has been here along with me, one of the first out here, and she was able to catch some of the interactions of parents reuniting with their children. Some 1,800 students go to this school. Dina, tell us what you were able to find out today.
Yeah, Jessica, so as you look behind me, this mire is now very quiet. It is still closed. This was not the scene earlier today. Let me explain to you. First of all, if you threw a stone over that mire, you'd hit Oxford High School. So when the gunman was apprehended and students had to get out of that school and go someplace safe, it made sense that those who didn't have a vehicle were told to walk here to this mire. And that's where we saw a lot of emotion unfold. Take a look. There is so much emotion as a tearful mom hugs an Oxford High School student. This is the scene playing out all around this Meijer store. Surrounded by sirens, cell phone video shows Oxford High School students filing into the store, and inside the grocery store announcements have been made. Shoppers are told, if you are not staff or a student, leave the store immediately. Meijer becomes a warm, safe place for students to reunite with loved ones. Savannah is 17 years old. She describes sitting in her classroom at Oxford High School and getting a text from her boyfriend, him telling her something is very wrong.
We locked the doors, but there's this closet actually in the classroom. So it was very safe, and the classroom was in the back corner.
Did you hear any gunshots?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. And then when did you get out of the school?
I felt like it was 30 minutes or something. The police came and knocked on the door, so we were able to get out.
As students walk to the nearby Meijer, parents are frantic and they're heading to the store to pick up their kids. Savannah is grateful that they went through training to prepare for a tragedy like this one. Did you guys have training as far as what to do in this situation? Mm-hmm. So do you feel like that helped you a little bit?
Yes, it did. Everyone was very serious. A lot of teachers think that we're not going to be serious, but it was, everyone was good.
Do.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank goodness. Guys, when I arrived here early in the afternoon, the police were everywhere, and they said, are you here to pick up a student? So they were being very careful to try and get parents in here to pick up their kids in a safe way. It was mayhem. But we saw in so many cases parents so relieved, parents, loved ones, siblings so relieved to be here. A difficult day for students, other students who will get up and go to school tomorrow, for parents who will say goodbye and put their kids on school buses tomorrow or wave goodbye to them. A difficult day for our community.
Dina, that is so true. So many tears, so much sadness there, and so much more to unravel as the investigation continues. Dina, Jessica, we thank you for those live reports. Also tonight, an Oxford church is planning a vigil to mourn the loss of the 3 students who were killed.
Fox 2's Charlie Langton joins us live tonight from Lake Point Community Church with more. And Charlie, so much heartache tonight.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, just being in the city of Oxford is just so trying. And you're right here. 7 o'clock is the time for the vigil that will take place right in this room. It holds about 600 people, but I understand from the pastor here that at the Lake Point Community Church, they may open it up to even more. Everyone is welcome. I'm going to get to that vigil in just one moment. But earlier, I had a chance to talk to students, a couple of students, but one in particular, Isabelle Flores. She's a 15-year-old freshman. She actually was telling us exactly what she heard. She heard the shots. This was between just after lunch and in a class change. She heard the shots, and then people started running, and she saw someone that got hit by a bullet. She saw the blood. She described what happened and how she got out. Here is Isabelle.
I was in the back during oral history where the classes were at, and I was walking to my class, and I hear gunshots, and I seen the guy bleeding through his cheek, and we all ran through like the back where the pool's at, and then we went through the gym, and then we went in the back, and the guy was still bleeding, and then we just all went from the back to all the houses in the back, and the ambulance started coming, make sure everybody was okay, make sure the guy was okay, but he was bleeding, ripped, and that's all I seen.
Just you must have been upset when you saw this. Then
yes, I froze.
Was someone helping him, coming to his rescue?
No, he was walking by himself at first, and then everybody looked at him, and they seen he was bleeding, so they helped him. When we got out, they helped him, and then he walked by himself, and he went in the car.
Just a courageous student. It's just such a tragedy. It's hard to really imagine someone 15, 16, 17 years old hearing the shots in a hallway after lunch in the middle of a school day. It just is something that doesn't happen often. Pastor Jesse Holt, he is the pastor here at Lake Point Community Church. Pastor, you will be conducting the vigil tonight, but what do you say to a 15-year-old like Isabelle, like many others, that heard the shots, saw the running, and may have seen one of the victims or are a victim themselves?
Yeah, what do you say? I mean, what can you say? I think all that I can say is you have to have in this, which is a terrible, terrible tragedy, you have to look at it and say out of it has to come a great, great hope. A hope in this community, and I believe in this community. I know we will come together. We've been separated because of the pandemic. We've been separated politically. You can hear the chatter, but I think and believe that something like this is what's going to unite us together so that we are a community once again. In this great tragedy, you have to look for the hope.
Pastor, this is also personal to you. One of your parishioners, the member of your church, was shot.
Yes, one of them is shot. He's in surgery right now, and we're praying for him, praying for his family, praying for all of them, that he's doing okay. We got to speak with him before, so I have a hope in that too, that he's going to be good. He's going to come out of it.
We hope so too. What is the message tonight, and who do you want to see come here?
Well, I think there's, in Scripture, it talks about having a peace that surpasses your understanding. So primarily my message tonight is going to be, give us a peace, because we don't understand. So we need to go beyond our understanding and have the peace of God with us right now. And all are welcome to come and hear that and be a part of that and pray together tonight.
7 o'clock here, Lake Point Community Church here in Oxford. Everyone is welcome. And we'll wait for your message. Thank you, Pastor. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, you heard it here again. 7 o'clock here. Welcome. Everyone can be here. Again, talking to the students, not talking to the pastor. It's an emotional day. There's no question about it. But somehow something positive is going to have to come out of here. And hopefully it will happen, at least at the church. There will be other services as well. I understand that Woodside pastor is going to be having a service tomorrow. And then there's also another church, Kensington will have something tonight as well. But again, here at Lake Point Community Church in Oxford, 7 o'clock tonight for anybody that wants to come out for this vigil. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Charlie, we know so many of those kids are still in shock. So many of those families cannot wrap their head around what happened today. Our hearts go out to all of those families, and certainly the families of those 3 children who have been lost. to gun violence. So thank you for that live report, Charlie, and we'll see you again later tonight.
Thank you.
Well, in addition to the 3 people killed, 8 people were shot. Police say the victims were taken to various hospitals. Right now, Fox News' Dave Spencer is live outside McLaren Oakland in Pontiac. Dave, what kind of activity are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's still some activity. We just watched a few moments ago as classmates of presumably one of the victims came up here, embraced each other right outside the entrance there, and then one of them was allowed in. Obviously, with COVID protocols, they all can't go in to visit presumably a loved one. We asked them if they had anything to say. They said not at this moment. They just wanted some time to grieve. But as you mentioned, a total of 11 people were shot. 3 of them, all teenagers, all students at Oxford High School, did not make it. The 8 others were sent to 3 area hospitals, one of them being McLaren here in Pontiac, the other being McLaren in Lapeer, and then St. Joe's in Pontiac. We were told that 2 of them are in surgery. 2 of the 8 are in surgery. Their condition is unknown. The others, the 6 others, are in stable condition. We are also told that a deputy has been assigned to each and every one of the victims. All the family members have been notified of their injuries. There are 2 deputy SUV from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office parked outside McLaren, so you can assume at least 1 patient is here, possibly 2. We also watched moments ago as the FBI, who we know is involved in the investigation, walked out of the entrance, got in a car. They most likely were up there trying to glean whatever information they could from one of the patients. Other than that, we're still waiting for any other condition updates. Again, 2 people in surgery. Their conditions are unknown. Stable for the other 6. 3 area hospitals all treating them. You heard about the massive response and how they were able to get there in 5 minutes and how there were over 100 calls to 911. You saw all the police, all the firefighters, all the EMS. You saw 2 medical helicopters there on scene to try and treat these patients and get them as help as soon as possible. We know that of the 8, 1 of them is an adult. The others are all students, and we're all obviously praying for a swift recovery for everybody that's injured, and our thoughts and our prayers go out to those who didn't make it tonight. Hopefully more information will come out as we continue to monitor the situation outside the hospital here in Pontiac, but I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Dave, I know it's early, but I understand that police have already tried to speak to the alleged shooter's parents. Do we know that anybody who is in the hospital right now, who may not be in surgery, who may have been wounded but not seriously, has been able to talk to investigators about what they saw, about what happened?
Yeah, we don't know that for a fact, but we did watch the FBI agent go in and then take off, and maybe they got the information they were looking for, maybe not. There's no way to tell a little soon in the investigation, but we do know that they were at least here and made some attempt to get new information about what that person may or may not have seen inside the school. You heard him mention all the camera angles that they'll pull over to kind of get a better picture of what's going on, and hopefully the people that are in stable condition can provide investigators an accurate picture of just what took place around 1 o'clock this afternoon inside the halls of Oxford High School.
All right, Dave, thank you for that live report.
We continue to hear from parents, many who rushed to the school or the nearby Myers store to reach their children. We also caught up with one mom who said her son asked to stay home today, and she thankfully told him he could.
My son stayed home. He just didn't want to go today, actually, because the other students didn't want to go that he goes to school with. So he was like, "Mom, nobody is answering. Nobody seemed to go to school today. I just want to do online today." And I let him take that initiative for today, and I'm glad that I did. I'm not sending him back to this school. This is ridiculous. There's too much going on too fast. Things are constantly happening, and I can't. All these kids, I mean, they're not bad kids, but safety is the first and foremost. Safety needs to be done for all these kids, even the staff.
The shooting at Oxford High saw a massive response from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, police, and other first responders. Fox News' Brandon Hudson joins us live now with more on that response. Brandon.
Yeah, so we've been on the ground within walking distance of Oxford High School for the better part of 3 hours. Since about 2:30, the police presence has been scaled back quite a bit. I see a couple sheriff deputies in one direction on North Oxford, and then there are several others right by the entrance of the school, several hundred yards back. Now, aside from hearing the chopper above us, it has been pretty quiet out here for the better part of an hour. We did see a bomb squad truck from Michigan State Police and Salvation Army truck drive by us probably within the last 15 minutes. But this has been a difficult day for a lot of first responders because some of them do have connections to the people here at Oxford High School and in this Oxford community. And you got to think they also train for these kind of situations just about every year. So during our downtime, we had a chance to catch up with Macomb County Sheriff Anthony Wickersham, who has been watching this unfold in real time like many of us. He gave us some insight on how these active shooter trainings prepare these officers for the unthinkable.
The dispatch center is going to get flooded. Those dispatchers are going to be asking a lot of questions to get good information so they could put that back out to responding deputies or responding officers. So there's going to be a lot of communication and getting good factual information where the individual, the shooter is. Once they establish that location, then they have to relay that to the responding deputies. And again, I don't know all the facts yet in the Oakland County one, and I don't want to comment on any aspect of it, but I believe there was a school resource officer in there. So I know from my organization, we train every road patrol deputy on the active shooter and the proper responses. The SWAT team, they're going to come in later. We're hoping that we have individuals that are on the team that are working in the area that could respond with that tactical advantage. But in this type of situation, the individuals that are going to be responding are going to be our regular patrol deputies that, maybe 5 minutes earlier we're taking a larceny from an automobile, and now they're speeding to get to the high school because there's a shooting in progress.
Yeah, so you just heard Sheriff Wickersham give a rundown of how these active shooter trainings help his officers, help a lot of these officers in these Metro Detroit communities prepare for situations like we saw today, from the dispatchers getting the emergency calls to the officers going into, in this case, it was the high school to figure out what's going on and try to help people out and get them out of danger safely. Now, even though the shooting is over, Sheriff Wickersham says that the investigation is far from over. It's just beginning. He said they have to talk to thousands of witnesses. So you're talking about students, educators, parents in some cases, just to kind of go through what happened. They do have this suspect in custody, so that is another key part to this investigation. They'll talk to his parents, they'll talk to an attorney, and try to get as many answers as possible. But the officers will also debrief and collect themselves, regroup, find out what went wrong, what went right, and then prepare for another situation if it ever happens. Let's go back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Once again, 3 students shot and killed today at Oxford High School, 8 other people wounded, 2 people currently in surgery, and the shooter, that 15-year-old student, was taken into custody.
Fox 2's Jessica Dutnick joins us again live with the latest on the investigation. Jessica.
Hi, guys. I'm standing here with Under Sheriff Mike McCabe, 44 years of law enforcement experience behind you. Where does today rank?
Oh, it's at the top of the list, no doubt about it.
And why do you say that? Just the scope, the tragedy?
Scope, tragedy. It's one of those things where I actually live here about a mile away from here, and you never think it's going to happen in your community. Just say, no way, you don't believe it, and then it does. So it's shocking. It's unbelievable.
When you talk about the crime scene, and I know you can't give too much away, but how widespread is it? What are we looking at in terms of evidence collection and all of that?
Well, it's very large in that, he had 5 minutes to do what he was doing until we took him into custody. And you can do a lot of damage over a large period or a large area in 5 minutes, obviously. So our forensic lab's still here. Detectives are still here. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. And this is going to take days to put things together.
I know it's still early, but you talk about charges. He's a juvenile. What are we looking at as a timeline in terms of charges?
It'll be at least a couple days. I mean, we have up to 72 hours to get charges. So we'll take the full 72 before we go to the prosecutor's office, because we want to put everything together. I mean, it could be a little sooner than that, but he's 15 years old, so he's a juvenile. The prosecutor's office can have to make a decision whether to charge him as a juvenile or an adult.
The victims in this situation, your investigators obviously in touch with the families. Any indication of how they're holding up? A silly question.
Not well, not holding up well, especially the 3 that are deceased. We have 8 others that were shot. 2 of those are in surgery. 6 are in stable condition at 3 different hospitals.
You've seen this kind of tragedy over many decades of your career. How does this affect a community?
It'll affect the community for probably 100 years. This is not something that, it's not a club you want to belong to. It'll be sort of like the Edmund Fitzgerald, it'll be recounted time and time again as years go on.
Anything else that you want folks to know in the community just about this tragedy? Anything they can do beyond, thoughts and prayers?
It's a very supportive community. Like I said, I've lived out here for over 20 years. It's a great community to live in. It's a great school district. We've trained with the school district multiple times. The superintendent here, Tim Throne, I know personally, has done a great job. They brought in a school resource deputy when many couldn't afford it. We've had canine sweeps in here. They've done everything they can do. There's just some things you can't prevent.
You and the Sheriff Bouchard, you guys host active shooter drills for the community. I know
Yes.
It's something that is important to your cause. How do you prevent something like this?
Again, it's certain things you can prepare for, but you cannot always prevent. The sheriff will talk about that tonight at 10 o'clock when we have the last briefing at 10 o'clock tonight.
Thank you, sir. I know you're busy.
Okay.
We'll let you get back to things.
All right.
Thank you again,
Thank you.
sir.
Have a good night.
Again, that was Under Sheriff Mike McCabe with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. They are the lead investigators out here. Obviously, a very busy day. They've had support from local agencies all the way up to the feds, who will continue to assist in this investigation. As I said earlier, you're talking about 1,800 students that need to be interviewed, surveillance videos, social media traffic. There is a huge investigation ahead of them, and also answering some of those questions that we want to know, that, of course, parents want to know. Were there any indicators here that this was coming? We know that letters were sent home to students earlier, or to parents earlier this month at Oxford High School, of separate threats. Now, the undersheriff not ready to make a link, saying that it's unclear if those threats are related to what happened here today. But again, all part of that lengthy investigation that's going to be weeks, months, maybe even a year ahead.
Well, Jessica, a tough and difficult day for everyone in that community and for all of us here in the state of Michigan. We thank you for that live report. Well, tonight, elected leaders across Michigan are weighing in on the tragedy. Some of those leaders, parents themselves. We heard from Governor Gretchen Whitmer at the top of the hour. Here is what she had to say.
This is an unimaginable tragedy. I hope that we can all rise to the occasion and wrap our arms around the families, the affected children and school personnel, and this community. It is an unimaginable tragedy, and I just wanted to be here because I think this is an important moment for us to support one another, to support this community, and I want to thank our first responders again.
And Attorney General Dana Nessel also responding to the tragedy, saying, quote, "My heart goes out to the parents who have lost their children and to the students, teachers, staff, and families reeling from this tragedy of a school shooting within their community. My department has reached out to local law enforcement to offer assistance as this investigation unfolds, and I want to extend my sincere gratitude to first responders on the scene." She goes on to say, "We must act to properly address gun violence in our schools and the ongoing threat of another unconscionable tragedy if we continue to only offer thoughts and prayers. Our kids deserve better." And Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter also had this to say today. He says, "I'm horrified by this tragic shooting at Oxford High School. The entire Oakland County community is in shock by this terrifying display of violence, and our thoughts are with Oxford families tonight. I'm grateful for the quick response from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and all of the first responders. The county's Emergency Operations Center has been activated to offer any support and assistance needed by first responders and the families in Oxford today and in the days ahead. And tonight, we are mourning the loss of those 3 lives during this tragic mass shooting at Oxford High School. The investigation just beginning.
And you know, we have to keep in mind, too, how quickly Oakland County deputies responded to the scene. That may have saved more lives. It could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, it was not. So sad that those 3 young lives are gone. We are praying and hoping for their families and for those in the hospital right now. Of course, we continue to cover breaking news from Oxford, where, as we mentioned, 3 students are dead, 8 others wounded in a mass shooting inside Oxford High School. 2 of those shot are in surgery right now.
And the alleged shooter, a 15-year-old sophomore at the school, is now being held in juvenile detention at Children's Village in Oakland County. He is refusing right now to cooperate with police. We are also told that his parents have hired an attorney. We'll have much more on this developing story later, right here on Fox 2.